This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so we're opening up the regular session of the Common Council of the City of Port Orford for Thursday, November 22nd, 2024 at 5 p.m. Call to order really quick. Quick roll call. Councilor Burns.
Here.
Councilor Pogwitz.
Tim here.
Mayor Cox is here. Councilor Velisis.
Here.
Councilor Webb is on his way. Councilor Tidy.
Present.
And Councilor Rask is not here presently. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is open up an executive session under ORS 1926602D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations, and ORS 1926602I to review and evaluate the employment-related performance of chief executive officer of any public body, a public officer, employee, or staff member who does not request an open hearing.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
So got a first and a second on that. Everybody's good. Greg, yeah. Okay, I got a consensus to open up the session, so I will go ahead and then we're off on the recording there.
This
47. That clock is fast.
I've seen complaints about the horn going off a minute late.
It's probably because of that clock.
Oh, there's Perry.
Oh.
Oh,
Okay,
there's the auditor person too.
Oh.
so are we going
Recording?
to
Yes, we are recording and.
entertain any motions? Do we have any written motions? Okay. I have to accept that, don't we?
You can do what you would like
I
to
mean, we
do.
have to.
I will try to make a motion. I would make a motion that we approve the agreement between the proposed agreement between the City of Port Orford and the Teamsters Union
Second that.
as discussed.
Oh, I guess that's the only one we have. Okay. Any discussion on that we can't have? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. Councilor Tidy?
Yes.
Councilor Burns?
Yes.
Councilor Webb?
The web, yes.
Councilor Pogwitz?
Tim, yes.
And Councilor Velisis?
Yes.
And Rask is on here now.
Okay. Let the record
Hi.
show Councilor Rask is here. Hi,
Hey, Perry.
Harry. We just got out of executive session. And we are voting on the Teamsters contract. So this is a little different.
Well, I'm not going to vote because I can't read it. So
Hey, you can abstain if you want. I mean,
yeah, I'll abstain.
okay, so did I call on everybody?
Yes.
So we have ratified the contract with the Teamsters Union.
Yep.
That was a long, hard thing to get done. Thank you for all your hard work, Melissa.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Melissa. That was a long time coming.
Yep, we have good people.
Please
So
thank
I'm happy to do it.
Diana as well.
And Diana Moffett too. Yes. So she did really well.
We give her, yeah.
Team effort.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Any additions to the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll go right into presentations. Thank you for your patience. We had an executive session, I guess is enough explanation. So we'll start with the fiscal year 23 audit presentation.
I guess that's my cue. Can everyone hear me all right?
Sorry, didn't flip ahead enough in the script. Thank you. Oh, sweet.
So this is Benjamin Cohen. He's the with the auditors of KDP. And again, this is our 2023 audit. So now, Benjamin, we have copies of the final audit as well as the letter that you had asked to have them. The counselors have that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for the introduction. And I'm also going to apologize in advance. I'm kind of getting a little bit over a cold. And so my voice is a little bit more rough than normal. So I might be a little bit more brief than I normally would. But as always, if anyone has any questions, feel free to chime in at any time. As Melissa mentioned, I'm going to be going through two documents, one being the audit report, and the other being the communication with governance letter. Regarding the audit report, I'm not going to go into huge detail because at this point, a lot of the information is a little bit outdated, but there are definitely a few things that I want to highlight, primarily just compliance issues and then some changes from maybe how it's looked in previous years. So on that note, I am going to jump straight into the report. And I usually like to start with page A1, which is the independent auditor's report. This is kind of the meat of the whole report, where we give our opinion and we outline the various responsibilities. And so, of course, we have audited the financial statements for the year ended June 30, 2023. For the most part, we gave unmodified opinions, which is, the highest form of assurance that you can receive. One thing that you will notice a little bit different this year as opposed to previous years is we provided a qualified opinion over governmental activities. And the reason that is because much like you, we also get audited periodically by the Secretary of State. And one of the things they brought to our attention was that a lot of auditors were missing this step. And so I'm going to try not to go into too much detail here to kind of bore you, but it's required by Oregon statute that retirees are provided the option to stay on a municipality's health insurance plan. And so when these retirees stay on the city's health insurance plan, that causes the premiums to go up because retirees are on average older. And so they raise the age of the population, which raises the cost of the premiums. This increase in the cost in premiums is kind of conventionally known as the implicit medical subsidy, because you are subsidizing the cost of those retirees' future health care. And so GAAP, or generally accepted accounting principles, say that we should obtain an actuarial valuation of the potential future costs, of these subsidies. And so that is a valuation that the city did not obtain. You have obtained it in previous years. I think when I talked to David, we had one from 2016 or 2017. But so that's something that you're probably going to want to obtain going forward. And you can speak directly with your insurance provider. Often they will pay for it. So it often comes at no cost to the city. And again, this qualified opinion, it's just over the governmental activities. And so it's not anything on how the city normally maintains their books. This is when you look at the financial statements, these are the full accrual statements. And so basically what we're saying is, because you haven't obtained that valuation, we can't say without seeing that whether it's significant or not. Does anyone have any questions about that? I know that's kind of a tricky concept.
So what do we do to fix that? Will you, Melissa, you consult with our financial consultant and she'll integrate that into next year's budget, or do we retroactively do it here?
No, I think it's part of moving forward, is my understanding, is that now that we have Ann Heath, who is very knowledgeable about this, that she will be able to.
Do we
handle
have
that.
any currently that are participating in that?
Not that I know of.
Right. So, and typically, so the amount that they would be liable or responsible for would be what they're currently responsible for? In other words, we're
I
not
don't know
picking
that.
up their half or whatever.
No.
And so they would likely be getting Social Security benefits, things like that. And so is this really that big of a risk? I mean,
I think maybe because the auditor, he's talking about the deficiencies. So
I get that part, and I
Right.
agree. There's got to,
Yeah.
we haven't planned for that. I get that. But to Ann's point,
We didn't have
you know,
anything
what do we do? Is,
before.
well, how do you plan for that contingency? Do you take, I mean, you could invest in that until you're blue in the face and not really ever know, you know?
Right.
And then given our current financial situation, is it fair to our other programs to take from them to plan for something that is highly unlikely?
And I don't know. I don't know the answer. That's why we've hired
No,
Ann
if it
Heath.
is unlikely. I mean,
Well, how old are our guys though? I mean, if you look at the age of our guys, they're, I mean, or our
Employees.
your employees.
Mhm.
If we look at your employees, they've got another 10 years easy, right?
Well, we have a couple folks that are nearing retirement age, so I don't,
the point is, I think that it sounds like CIS, there are specific ways to do it. And so it's not like we'd be making
And
it up.
again, it's like we talked about earlier though. I mean, in this small town with no money, we're being held to the standards of Portland.
Mhm.
And we need to be sure that that works for us. And if we get a little deficiency thing on a piece of paper, but it keeps our city operating smoothly, then let's take that little deficiency on a piece of paper and keep our city operating smoothly. Just my look at it.
Yeah, so if I can chime in, two things. It's a great point because it's highly unlikely that this is going to be in any way significant. We just can't say that without seeing the valuation. But a lot of times you could be able to obtain it at no cost to the city. That being said, if you do have to pay for it, we do have a lot of municipalities that opt to not pay for it, and they, just like you said, they get the notification of the qualified opinion here, and they just kind of move on with their lives.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anyone has any questions at a future date, you can always send those to me through Melissa as well. Okay, so moving on through the report. This is a great place to just briefly go over the various responsibilities. So management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with GAAP, and the design, implementation, and maintenance of internal control. Whereas as your auditors, it's our responsibility to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement. And of course, reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but it is not absolute assurance. We don't look at absolutely everything. We look at things on a test basis and make sure that, especially significant amounts have appropriate support. So at this point, I'm going to jump from page A1 to the second to last page of the audit, which is the independent auditor's report required by Oregon state regulations. So this report, it's regarding as part of obtaining reasonable assurance about whether the city's financial statements are free of material misstatement. We do perform certain tests of its compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grants, including the provisions of the ORS, or Oregon Revised Statutes. And so in connection with our audit, nothing came to our attention that caused us to believe the city was not in substantial compliance, except for a few matters which are highlighted in note 2. And then, of course, the city was not able to submit the required audit report to the Secretary of State Audit Division in a timely manner. The city did file for an extension as soon as they were able to. Unfortunately, the Secretary of State does not allow you to file for an extension until you've submitted the prior year audit. So it's kind of always a little bit late in that regard. And then jumping over to note 2, there were 2 additional budget violations during the year. We noted that amounts on the resolution adopting the fiscal year 24 budget did not agree to the budget document. And usually this happens because there might be a little change or something right at the end that doesn't make it into the resolution that gets adopted, but then it makes it into the budget detail. So we did note a difference there. And then we also noticed that there was a negative budgeted fund balance in the public safety fund, and additionally a negative budgeted ending fund balance in the public safety fund. So negative budgeted fund balances are a a violation of local budget.
Of what?
Local, thank you.
Where are the number twos and stuff that he's
What are you referring to? We're not seeing.
we're not following you.
Sorry, on page 19, it's note 3, appropriation and budgetary controls.
He did, you're right.
I said note 2, I apologize.
Is that no two? Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the letter, unless anyone has any questions regarding the budget violations. Okay, so the communication with governance letter is created to inform the city council about significant matters related to the conduct of our audit, and so that it can appropriately discharge its oversight responsibility, and also so that we can comply with our professional standards. We did conduct our audit consistent with the plan, scope, and timing that we previously communicated to you.
I believe these are a reminder that we provided earlier, the letters from him.
So now we go. They are.
So under in the white tab, presentations to the council,
Yellow
there should
tab.
be back there.
Wait, yellow tab?
No,
White
mine
tab.
was a white tab.
Sorry. The one that says presentations.
That's the one.
Thank you.
And I did
Sorry.
in the 2 different letters, Ben, and so
Mhm.
you can refer to which letter, in the planning and performing our audit, that one.
It starts, this letter is to inform the city council
Okay.
of the city of
The
Port
second one
Orford.
in your packet. The second. There you go. That's it. From September 16th. This letter is to inform the city council.
I kind of went over that first part, and then I discussed our various responsibilities previously, as I feel the audit opinion has a little bit more robust of an explanation. And then I'm going to finish with the bottom of the page there regarding significant accounting policies. So management is responsible for the selection and use of appropriate accounting policies, and a summary of significant accounting policies is included in note 1 to the financial statement. So if you want to take a look at that. On the next page, regarding significant accounting estimates. So significant accounting estimates are an integral part of the financial statements, and they're based on management's knowledge and experience about past and current events and assumptions about future events. So certain accounting estimates are particularly sensitive because of their significance to financial statements and because of the possibility that future events affecting them may differ significantly from those expected. So the most significant estimates affecting the city's financial statements were management's estimate of property taxes receivable, management's estimate of the allowance for uncollectible counts related to citations, management's estimation of depreciation expense, and then OPEB or other post-employment benefits and the pension liability. So regarding all these estimates, we did evaluate the key factors and assumptions used to develop them, and we determined that they were reasonable in relation to the financial statements as a whole. Going to the next page, regarding financial statement disclosures. Certain financial statement disclosures involve significant judgment and are particularly sensitive because of their significance to the financial statement users. So the most sensitive disclosures affecting the city's financial statements relate to the pension and the OPEB obligations, mainly because of their magnitude. You know, they are very significant liabilities. Regarding audit adjustments and uncorrected misstatements, was relatively minimal audit adjustments, and we're not aware of any uncorrected misstatements other than misstatements that are clearly trivial. We were also not aware of any consultations management had with any other accountants about accounting or auditing matters during the year under audit. Also, in the normal course of our professional association with the city, we do discuss a variety of matters, and none of those matters discussed resulted in a condition to our retention as the city's auditors. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone has. And of course, we do really appreciate the opportunity to continue to be of service to the city. I know personally, I have worked with the city now for, I think, going on 7 or 8 years. And so it's exciting to be in this role as the signer now.
We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
It's nice not to have to you hire a new guy, you know what I mean?
So can you clarify, are we now caught up to where we're supposed to be? We're still behind. So can you please help maybe Melissa or maybe
Ben.
Ben, if you could help us understand, what do we need to still do to get caught up here? We're still working on it.
Right. So this is the 6/30/23 audit that we've issued. We still need to get started on the 6/30/24 audit.
Okay.
Technically it's due by 12/31. But I think, given the circumstances with all the changes, the current plan is to try and get it done right at the beginning of calendar year 25. And then hopefully we'll be able to roll right into getting back on track for fiscal year 25 and completing that in the fall so that we can make that 12/31 deadline. The nice thing is that being a city, there's really no repercussions for being late. In terms of if you were, say, a school district, they would withhold your funding.
But that we should have it done so that when we go into our budget season, we'll have that information finally, which will be great. Okay.
And so the reason I want to, my own mind, the reason that we were behind, the reason we fell behind was because we had difficulties providing the information during this cluster of, okay, but it's an anomaly and that's not going to happen again. And we're back on track.
We're getting back on track. But again, like he said, we couldn't file the next one to catch up until the other one was done. And as my understanding was, the year 21/22 was had to go through like a forensic audit, like it really had to be delved into. And I think that really pushed things behind.
It held us like.
And so I think that is what we're trying to dig out from. And
then
so
finance director, not having a finance director,
correct.
and should be able to help us a lot getting
Right.
this back.
And to be really clear, David Johnson was the one who helped with all of this, and he continued to work through this, working with Ben and his team and doing all of those things. So he worked with a lot of things on this, and we've just hired Anne in this year, and just it's sort of strange, but this is actually, we're sitting in actually the fiscal year 25 right now, because you name it by the last half of the last half. So this was from 23, which means we still have 20. Yeah, so this was 22/23.
Right.
And then now we need to have 23/24 done, and then we'll work forward for 25. So we're
We're a year. Okay, so
Yeah.
we're not as close as I thought.
No.
but we're getting there, and we've filed our extensions and things.
So I'd like to make a statement, which I consider to be true. David Johnson had absolutely nothing to do with us being behind in our audits. When he left, we were up to snuff and everything was good.
Right.
And
Right, and that's what I mean. He helped dig
And-
this out and gave information
he
to
came
Ben
back-
and to
he
do this to
came
help
out
fix.
of
Yes, that's what
retirement.
I'm saying. Yeah,
See,
that's why
I
it was
just want to
given.
make it clear to the public that he absolutely
Give him a pin or something.
did his job. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
And helped us out even beyond his retirement.
Yes.
Really bailed us out.
Thank you.
He's a
Yeah.
great resource. We should get him a pen.
Like a writing pen?
Okay, well, I think that's, okay.
We don't need to make any actions or.
We have to
Should get him
accept
a
the
love
audit,
and
don't we?
gratitude pin.
Yeah, we have to accept the audit.
Well, not at this moment on the agenda because it's just the presentation, so.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right,
Yeah.
so, what other high points, Ben?
That's all I have for you at this time, unless anyone has any questions.
Anybody? It sounds like we're gonna be talking to you quite a bit more than usual. A year
while.
coming up soon.
We're getting there.
See you soon. Yeah.
Have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you for your
Yeah, sure
presentation.
appreciate you.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you. You all as well.
No, I don't see, is the audit on the agenda for approval tonight? Am I?
You know, we don't really approve it on it.
I was
We
not.
accept it?
Do we accept it?
We have
We have to
to.
accept it,
We
yeah.
don't have that on the agenda.
But
That's what I'm getting at. That, so the time would be now if we want to add
we
that.
didn't get a chance to do additions to the agenda, did we, Pat?
I asked, but
Did you?
yeah.
So can I,
Can
I,
we
So I
go
moved
back
to,
and
I
go back and
moved
do it?
to add the acceptance of the audit fiscal year 23,
23.
I second that.
as presented.
Okay, so we'll move
Trying to
that
get it on
to, we'll move that.
Wait, to add it, not to vote on it.
Right, no, so we're gonna add that to
Can we just do it right
12E.
now? Can we just, is everybody gonna break it?
Is everybody okay with adding that to the agenda by consensus?
Yes.
All right, then go ahead and make your motion. Right now.
Yeah, I'd move to approve that,
Accept.
You accept?
accept the,
Sorry. That's the word that gets me
No, I
every
just-
time is
I
like,
don't know
we
what
can't,
we were talking about all
we
this.
can't approve it. We just paid them a
So-
good
so
pretty
I
penny
need
to
to
make sure that.
Accept the audit for fiscal year 23, be 22, 23, as presented by our trusted auditor. And that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Counselor Rask? God, I'm doing that to the people online.
So it's a terrible thing to do. She's muted, so we.
Uh,
There it is. Yes.
Counselor Tidy?
Yes.
Counselor Blysis?
Yes.
Counselor Webb?
Webb, yes.
Counselor Pogwitz?
Tim, yes.
Counselor Burns?
Yes.
You gotta mix it up, Ann. When you take over, you gotta mix up the vote. You
Oh, I
can't.
know. I don't know. if
can't
we're
let
gonna
them
be able
get used to it.
Wonder.
Feel that.
All right, so we are on to our second
Mhm.
presentation.
Mhm.
Sierra is Amita,
Zamita.
Living Willow Fence. Sierra, are you still with us?
I've seen it. Over and over and over, I've seen it.
It says it's hot.
Who is it? Who are we?
Sierra Izamita.
Oh.
So.
Wonder if it went
Maybe
weird with
she's
the
having-
executive session.
Difficulties potentially.
She was just there. I wonder if she just stepped away with her son.
So around the A-frame to the bathrooms and to the other side of the parking lot. That looks like the proposal, huh?
Mm,
The A-frame.
Yeah, it's from the side of the A-frame. This just.
That looks like it.
So I think the road.
Can't see the road.
I know. I think the road is would be here.
Yeah, it is,
Wouldn't
yeah.
have been to
It's where the
it's-
current playground green fence surrounds the playground, extends from the A-frame around that entire area. It's pretty much a safe spot for kids. It looks like she just rejoined.
The only thing I don't like about it is it hides the visibility. Being able to look into that park, which could create issues down the road.
Well, it's willow. It's not a solid fence, Tim. So it'll grow
I thought it was a
naturally.
hedge. It says a hedge.
Yeah, it looks like a hedge in the pictures too.
It
And it
says
would
a
be-
decorative and will also act as a wind block in the long term. A beautiful hedge. It will create a beautiful hedge. So that's the part that concerns me. is that it's going to hide the whole playground in that whole area. That's the only concern I have.
Because you've sat in your car and watched your kids at the playground, huh?
Well, I drive by there and I do see that park and glance in there. I mean, I'm not.
There's plenty of places to dip out at the park, but that being where the youngest of children go.
Yeah.
I see your point there, Tim.
And I would just add that
I
another
was-
concern, although I really like this idea, is hedges have a way of taking over. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it is an ongoing maintenance thing of who's going to be keeping that hedge, trimming it and keeping it from just
I
growing.
wonder if they could show us from the A-frame west.
Mhm.
And that would only involve kind of shrouding the golf course, right? That would, and then, let's,
From the parking area.
Yeah,
Pilot,
from
like
the-
a pilot
yeah,
project.
like, show us what you got here. Show us this little section that goes between the parking lot and the golf course thing. So that we might consider that other piece, but like what Tim, because if I was gonna go check on my kids, I wouldn't go to the parking lot of the golf course. You know what I mean? I would come over to this side.
Right.
Where the
And
swings
so-
and,
Right.
Could we look at that as if it was two different questions? Then if
and I don't know if it would grow underneath those trees. There'd be no sunlight.
so, I am not a botanist, although I have been busted for growing things. I said that in an open meeting.
You sure did.
It looks like eventually they would, but who would be there at
Fly
the
around.
time when it grew that big? But they
Well,
would
that
try to
could-
weave it into a
It could grow that big.
see-through.
I worry about 10 years from now. I worry about the guy that has to maintenance that thing because it's willow and it's a hedge and they grow real fast.
What about these, so forgive me, I'm not up on
It's beautiful.
this either.
No, it's awesome.
You know how they build those fences out of wood and weave it all together?
Yeah.
What about a weaved fence that people could see through?
Well, that's what this is here. That's what the plan would be.
But it's like
Oh, I
weave
see.
as you grow, right? Like we're looking at a new hedge
That's a
that
living
grows for
hedge.
8 years to be able to weave it into this, and then you crop back the top to get the
They weave
stems.
wood and
uh,
post up to hold.
like-
You understand.
Right.
Yeah, no, that to make stems like that on a willow, you would have
Natural.
to really tend to it. Like it would be
No, I
amazing.
realize
There's
that,
no
but-
question.
How you could
The things off and then weave it?
I don't really understand the project. Is she here to explain it?
Well, I think she's having computer issues. So I think her internet's not working very well. So my understanding from talking to her is that she would, and part of this is that frugality is that she actually has and kind of would propagate the willows. So she plants them and then they're just sticks. So at first it's just sticks.
Yeah.
And then as they grow, then she would be weaving them into this lower right-hand picture that you would have. And then in its full glory, like you're saying, would be where it is like a hedge that would grow like that. But I think if she would start it, then you could probably make those decisions as it grows up.
So years ago, when I used to donate my time to do the solve cleanup at the park, one of the requests from the police department was to clean up,
Yeah.
raise the tree line around the skate bowl so when they drove by, they could see the kids.
Right.
So I feel like
Yeah.
this is the same kind of a situation. They couldn't really have an eye in there. I mean, of course, the first 3 years probably.
Sure. Right.
But also the people that live in the apartments across the street, I'm sure they have kids that play in the playground and they pop their head out and look out a door or window, whatever, and keep an eye on the kids. Are they still going to be able to do that? I don't know. So those are my concerns.
Yeah.
I like the idea of what she's trying to do,
Mhm.
but quite frankly, as much as I don't like chain link fences, a chain link fence would serve. You
Both
would be able to
purposes.
keep the kids in and people would still be able to see in.
No, I agree. And that's
Not
why but I
suggesting
think
chain
that's
link
what she,
fence, I'm just saying.
right. And I think that's what she's trying to, I believe she's trying to be frugal and have it be natural and that she has the ability to, as you know, to be able to grow it. But obviously that's a valid thing because that is a law enforcement concern.
Because
It's like the question is safe
It is that.
long term.
But yeah, it is a
Long-term,
long term. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't
Yeah,
that the
this-
babies?
This is the stems and it gets woven and then it grows up into a hedge.
So I think as a council years ago, some of you might remember, Rotary came to us and they wanted to put a golf club shed up with open, but people could go in and get the tools and stuff. And we had the same talk about concerns of, kind of an enclosed area where there could be some issues with, perhaps,
Illegal activity or.
illegal activity. Yeah.
So the,
Yeah.
Only illegal.
the interesting question is, what is the greater safety
You can see
concern?
that.
She's identified a safety concern of little kids running into the street or
Understood.
the other. So that's the question that I don't really feel like I have a good answer to.
Correct.
She's there with kids. And so I haven't
But it's
really.
not going to be a solution for 4 or 5 years.
So if that was the immediate concern, a 3-foot cyclone fence around the playground would be not as beautiful nor natural, but it would serve much better, right? Because there is chain link on the backside.
Miss Sierra, are you able to speak in now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Sorry for that.
We started
Yeah,
presenting without you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a couple of the issues that came up were visibility. In order for us to keep the smallest of children safe, kids who are ages, say, 5 and up, are pretty aware of traffic safety. So mostly it's kids between the ages of 2 and 5 or younger, and they're small. So it wouldn't need to be a very tall space, which would help with the issue of visibility. We're talking like a 2.5 to 3 foot high fence. It would be effective immediately. You can get that length of a willow established with roots. And then as you build it, you weave it together. And over time, it grows together. But it would be integral and woven together from the very start. So it would serve as a safety break for children running into parking lots right from the beginning. We had talked about chains in commission, but as City Council knows, money is the issue. We would be happy to move forward in creating that kind of a barrier. But in parks, our big thing is we want to make progress, but we don't have the fund. And so we're looking for creative solutions of how to fill the need without having to continuously feel like we're raising money. And so one of the really awesome benefits that I see about this design is that over time it may require continuous hedging, but it doesn't require maintaining a fence that might blow over in the wind. That ground is very saturated. And so it would be hard to get things to be stable in the ground there, especially with the wind. Underneath the pine trees, it would also be very difficult to plant any kind of posts due to the existing roots of the pine trees that are there. I believe I addressed the current concerns that were brought up.
Now, what about the willows growing in the shade of those trees? I don't think the sun ever gets in there.
The morning sun does. Yeah, the morning and afternoon sun. But that would be part of the experiment. There's definitely a lot of water there, and it could potentially help with water mitigation as well. Having more foliage there to absorb. It's basically like a pond this time of year along that whole line, all those trees. So potentially adding more vegetation could help with the absorption of that runoff. And that would be the experiment. There is willow that is growing there in the park that we could cultivate from. So it's already adapted to that area. But we could, like you said, do a little bit of an experimental plot underneath that before we, go digging up a bunch of ground and see how it grows.
It seems it's not permanent, so it does seem like it could be something worth trying, and we can always take it out if it doesn't work.
Pull the plants. Yep.
And we also got to make sure and talk with Public Works to make sure there's no water lines within like 10 or 15 feet.
We did that.
You did that.
Spoke with John. Yeah, spoke with John. As long as it's on the inside of the pine trees, we're good. So as long as the line runs inside of those pine trees, and then he said for the line running east to west from the A-frame to the gear shed, that little gear closet, where the garbage can is, that there's nothing it would interfere with on that line.
Nice.
So I have two questions too. Would you consider this would be a project that you personally would work on, the hedging, or the Parks Commission members would help to, because it's kind of maintenance, but also just, to make it work, you have to be hedging it and working on that. So is that something you're going to do?
Yeah, and honestly, that won't be for a few years before you really need to start considering really hacking it back. For the first few years, you're going to want to just reinforce the integrity of the existing structure by weaving it back in, and that is something that I would love to spearhead on. And Parks was really excited about the idea as well, just to bring more beauty to our park and have a creative solution that comes at no cost.
And then the only other question I have is, I know you guys have also been talking about doing a playground upgrade at some point, trying to get a grant to do that. So there is going to have to be a way probably to go in and out with that. So
It
what
would
is
block
your
no
plan?
access. Yeah. Yeah, that was something John and I talked about as well. So the main access that is used is between the pine tree and the A-frame building itself. There's a big gap there with boulders that they move out of the way when they need to get in there, and that line would remain open.
So do we need a motion to let her do this, or how do we?
So this is a recommendation from the Parks Commission to us already, right? Yeah.
Does anybody know with the plans, like the big playground plans for the new equipment and everything that's being worked on, are those pine trees on the south side of this picture? Are they planning on keeping those here?
They've asked the playground people have asked us to probably take those out when we were discussing
And that's
that.
why I was asking about that line of hedge. Like, I'd hate to get the hedge established and then, right as it's time to trim, be like, I'm just throwing it
Just
out
for
there. Not
maintenance
as
issues
a deal breaker,
themselves,
but just
because of all the
remember that
pine
there's
needles.
that other project going on. So I'd hate to, which actually they can get from the other side anyways, even, so it wouldn't hurt.
The basketball courts would open up, and that's a nice, easy way to get in. But like Sierra said, with that opening between the A-frame and there where the boulders are, that's what we've been discussing for the last 8 months there at the Parks meetings. We've been discussing this and trying to bring it up to you guys for this meeting.
I'd go ahead and move to.
I might break away. I have a child that's waking up that's not feeling well, so I will look forward to your guys' update and recommendations. I have to break away.
Thank you,
Sierra.
Thank you so much.
What worries me about this is the period of time required to produce it. And that's because I've seen everybody who gets a divorce and moves out of here. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen to anybody, but that's what happens. Or something changes, life changes, we change, or whatever changes. 4 years of one person to be stoked with being on the Parks Commission. That's
If I can, Brett, we have so many younger parents that want to volunteer, and we are always telling them that we can't do that right now because the city hasn't approved it yet. So there are a ton of volunteers that want to help with this project.
He feels there's a lot of people.
If it doesn't work out, it's just like any other right of way type of thing, right? Like it's about half an hour with a backhoe to fix it. I mean, not that but I'm just saying, if it was an issue or a problem, it's not like it's in concrete.
I would love the idea of a trial section, but because it takes so long to propagate and then you're looking at a decade until you have the job done.
So she said that she could buy bigger ones. It sounded like that would be kind of.
Yeah, we can buy bigger ones that would be already rooted that would take shape within a year and a half.
Are they extremely expensive for the larger ones? No?
Not one bit, Tim. It's actually so cost effective. It'd be like almost like a 15 to 20 foot section of chain link fence that you guys are proposing would be for the entire willow fence budget.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, I mean, we could get a pickup truck and 4 shovels and get enough for the probably. There's-
And we just would probably put this under the purview of the Parks Commission to keep up with the,
And there's nothing we need to worry about, like the species or the willows, or there's no invasive
We
willow.
have live willow right there in the park already.
So
So, I
what
mean-
if we established a maximum height? Because the point was that it was for small children and that we would be able to see in. That was the security point from the department in the past, right? If council decided that this was a good idea, let them go with it, as long as it, because if it goes beyond the run into the concerns that Tim had, with not Tim, but brought to us. Discussions
But
with the police.
when it gets
Real quick,
tall,
Counselor Webb. Real
and
quick,
it's
Counselor Webb.
it's just a weave that you look through. It's like a giant squares.
But that's not what we.
That lower picture.
Filled in.
It'll
It's just the
fill in.
bottom. This is the.
No, that's how it,
See, we don't know.
this
that.
is what they're after, I think, is the weave,
Is that last picture? Is that what it
the
is?
little one. Right.
I didn't understand.
We're not-
Counselors, if you remember, with small children, you're bringing those kids to the park. You're within 10 to 15 feet of them at all times anyways, usually inside the playground playing with them. So being able to see your children is a pretty much a moot point because you're going to be right there already. You're not going to be in your car 50, 60 feet away with a 2 or 3 year old in a playground.
Well, I agree with you 100% on that, Greg. But I was just conveying what the police department had asked of us when we used to clean up the park. They like to be able to see what's going on in the park too. So if nobody else has that concern, I'll go along with it.
I guess my only other question would be is, are we closing off the park? But that's the height concern. That's the leaving it open, or you know what I mean? Like it.
So how do the pickleball, I mean, I can get into that. How do the pickleball people get in? Is there going to be a gate? Do you know, Greg?
Yes. Like Sierra said, between the A-frame and the actual playground green fence that's right there, if you remember, there's some boulders, and we're going to keep that section completely open just so
Okay.
people can come and go out of the park as they want. And there also will be a small gated area near the actual parking lot where the mini golf course is. So you'll have egress and ingress through 2 sections there.
And just so you know, Greg, we're looking at a red line on a piece of paper. There's no gates. There's no specification. There's just 2 red lines that look like solid lines where we're seeing hedges, and we weren't told that. So
I understand. I'm very sorry, folks. It's been a long time coming, and we just tried to get this approved. And I'm sorry
no,
that
I know,
Sierra
but this
couldn't
is
be
the
here to
first
talk.
time we've seen it, and that's why I was. You might not know that we didn't see gates or openings or anything, and that's why.
Greg, there's another thing. There's another question. Can I ask you? We're seeing 2 photographs here. One has like a weave of stems, and then one has the fully grown hedge. And we're trying to figure out, is the weave of stems the end point, or is the fully grown hedge the end point?
I'm going through my my council packet on my phone. Hold on real quick. So I can
Go out
find out
on
where
a
that is.
limb and say that the weave is the end point, because if you wanted a hedge, you would just plant willows in a straight line and you would have a hedge.
Well, but that's one. That's how
Very
you
much so.
read about growing a strong hedge.
You
You
have
do
to
it with a
know it
weave. You weave
Oh,
it together
oh.
so it doesn't just get blown over.
I didn't
I'm
know
gonna
that.
say, Greg, I'm gonna send you a picture of what we're looking.
I'm just thinking of Escalonia. That's
Right,
the only
I know,
hedge
yeah.
I know.
So
It's real-
Counselor Tidy, I don't think you have that in your packet. So what we see here is the bottom where it's the stems that look like a weave.
I'm gonna send those
And then
to
this just looks like a normal hedge. And the question is, what's the end result? The more clear weave, or this more
Where it's all tight and you can't.
tied together?
The clear weave is the actual typical result, with a couple of prunings and everything else. That way you can see in and everything else, and just it's more visible, and it's more of a section for kids not to run out into traffic. I know we don't have a big traffic section like here in Vietnam, but it's just to keep the kids a little more corralled.
Right.
Okay.
Or tell Greg I sent him, or Greg, I sent you a picture. Can you tell us which is the final?
So it sounds like Counselor Webb
weave,
sent
the
you a
weave.
picture.
The one here is literally an untouched, unpruned hedge. We would like to have that.
Okay.
That
That's
makes
what
sense.
you'll get if no maintenance is done. That's what you get when you have volunteers in town that want the hedge.
Perfect.
Anne really enlightened me. I didn't realize that that's how you did a hedge, but that makes
Wait a
sense.
second, so I still don't understand. Which one is the end?
So the end result, he's saying that the end result is the clear one with the weave, right?
If unkept, it looks like this.
Every
So-
year.
Well, I mean,
Sometimes twice a year.
one of us could go out and do it if we were that, you know.
Yeah,
Well,
but
One, it's something that
one of
kids
us
could
do
go out and
everything,
trim.
and,
Yeah, no, I don't,
we
yeah.
don't do it
No,
because
you're
there's too
right.
many
No, I'm just
of
saying,
those things
it's,
for us
I
to
don't-
do.
it's not like a deal break.
It
Well,
seems like it's really controllable. If it doesn't work out, it just gets taken out.
Like you said, and if it doesn't work out, it takes about 30 minutes with a backhoe to get it all gone and shaped down.
Do we have a backhoe?
Yeah.
We do?
And the, yeah, we do have a backhoe. And the plan is that the Parks Commission is going to be the ones that maintain this? That's, okay, that's,
Yeah, I'm all right with this then. I'm ready to vote on it if anybody else.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve the willow weave
Can we,
fence.
Second.
I guess we should have done that before we started talking about all this.
You got a chance to talk in just a second. So we got a first and a second. What's your question, Tim?
no, I was
Yeah, it's
wondering
up.
if we should put in that motion, to be kept up by the Parks
Yes,
Department. I think we should put that in there.
Can I just add that, or I'll take,
Mhm.
I'll add to that motion that the Parks Commission will be the ones that will oversee this project.
And I'm not worried about the current Parks Commission because they're very active, but I'm thinking 10 years down the road.
Well, and
Yeah,
the
that's
problem
name
is
of this game.
we
Offend
actually,
people now when you're worried about people previously. To
we
basically-
have a parks plan, and the priorities in the parks plan is the Parks Commission is supposed to work on the parks plan. And so that's when like the other things start falling apart because we keep putting new things in. So that is,
Right, you have to,
Problem.
right, something else is gonna get, I don't wanna say neglected, but will become less important.
but it's also the possibility that people get excited, as Greg is saying, about engaging, and then you get more energy instead of less. And so that's, I think, the risk that we would be taking here is that this commission has been really interested to do more and make our park wonderful and special. And so it's kind of nice to support that
Yeah, for sure.
energy.
It's very hard to get volunteers when you're always constantly told by the council no. I'm just saying.
Well, and
For instance.
years ago, it was the park commissioner that wouldn't allow a lot of that to happen, but you're playing a balance game between certain people in the community want this, certain people want that, and it becomes, because we used to go over and do the solve cleanup, and we would take chainsaws because it was heavily wooded, and, we were told we couldn't cut too much, so we would go off into a far corner and cut all the dead stuff and pile it up, and Public Works clean it all up. But it's because some people don't want any of it cut, and some people do want it cleaned up, and they want to do these projects that Greg's talking about. So
I think it's more of the issue that, like you kind of do these projects, but then it creates for the city all these infrastructure that then ultimately we have to take care of, and we may not ultimately have the capacity to do it. But
correct.
in this case, I think I feel comfortable with
That they
letting
can
it,
do that.
giving it.
But I remember years ago it was a butterfly garden. If you touch the butterfly garden, whoever was in charge of that would just lose it.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. So sometimes the park commissioner, whoever they may be, kind of plays balance in between all the different people.
And I think it's interesting to understand that we are here for a certain period of time. And, like I remember in the times that I've been here and going over and walking in the park, the nature part of the park with Greg, there used to be a fitness park, a fitness trail over there that has decayed. And then it was a nature trail, and now it might become a Frisbee trail. And so things
Evolution.
change.
Evolve.
It does.
And so I guess we just have to be open to.
So did we get a second on your motion?
Yeah, so I'll give you a second on that.
Okay, cool. I didn't hear the second. so-
Yeah, you didn't, I don't think there was one.
Sorry, I was talking
We're
about
ready
the
to vote,
nature
Mr.
trail.
Mayor.
I was talking about the nature trail. Everybody's, Counselor Pogwitz.
No, I was just listening to your nature trail.
Yeah, you don't want to
Trying
know
to.
about it.
Sidebarring.
Tim, yes.
I don't like the nature trail. Ann Velisis.
Yes.
Counselor Webb.
Webb, yes.
Counselor Ann. Counselor Burns.
Yes.
Counselor Rask.
Yes.
Counselor Tidy.
Yes.
Good job.
Boy, we heard that all the way from Vietnam.
Sounded good. Okay, so we are on to our consent calendar. We got the minutes from September 12th, 17th, and an application for planning commission by Corey Ashauer.
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Second?
Any discussion on either of those minutes or the appointment?
Appreciate that Corey is stepping up.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you, Corey.
Okay, hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. Counselor Belisis,
Yes.
Counselor Rath,
Yes.
Counselor Pogwitz,
Tim, yes.
Counselor Tidy,
Yes.
Counselor Webb,
Webb, yes.
and Counselor Burns.
Yes.
Okay, citizen concerns. 3 minutes. Please state your name and address. Anyone online?
There's someone here.
Oh, there's people here, but nobody coming up. Okay, we don't have a public hearing today, so we will move on to departmental reports. This is usually where we start to slow down in the meetings, and we did have an executive session.
Right.
And so go ahead.
But be brief. We are looking at that utility update. I know that we sent letters out to our unknown lines. And so what we're asking is that people who got those letters to please contact John Isidore, and his email address is here, to give us information on their service line from the meter to their house. So we're only looking at that service line pipe on the customer side. We're looking at our side also, but we're trying to gain information. I know that letter was confusing. I know that it was hard to understand, but that was the template that we got from the EPA that we were asked by the Oregon Health Authority to send out for this. So again, that was the template that we were given that we needed to use. How you can help us with that is to see what the material is of that pipe from the meter, again, towards your house. So some of them will be PVC. What is the pipe made of? What's the material? That's what they're trying to find out. So that can be done through pictures. Also, if the home was built in 1986 or later, then we know that the government had said you can't use lead for that. So if your house is from 1986 or newer, then you automatically know that that pipe is not made of lead. And by letting John Isidore know my house was built in 1991, thus it would be lead free, that would be awesome. So this is working with the community to help get this survey done. And again, this is something that has happened at the national level. And then the state has been charged to roll it out. And then as municipalities, we then have to report back what is happening. So this is an ongoing thing. So as soon as we know what the line is, the service line of the folks' houses, then, and on our side as well, because we're checking on our side as well, the complete service line, then we can turn that in and say, now we know it's no longer unknown, and then we can move forward with that. So that, I know, again, I apologize for the confusion. I know it was a rough letter, but also as far as I have understood it, for as long as we've looked, and we do testing on our water all the time, and we have not come back with a lead result that was above any standard or anything like that. So this isn't because we got a ding or that there was lead found or anything like that. This is a standard, just a survey or an interview,
Some lead was used before that.
correct. And so that was why, because we,
Lots and lots of leads. Even after 86, there's still lead in the solder and stuff. And then in like 20, they changed that again to where even the brass fittings, like the city had to change the type of fittings they used around 18 or 20, I think, to like even less lead in the brass.
Correct.
So
correct.
Could you just give a little advice to people who you were saying how to go do this yourself if you're like needing to go and do this? You go to your meter and you look on your side and you dig down to just see what it is, or you what
Or
should
where
people
it
be
goes
doing?
into the house. And I'm gonna, if Superintendent Isidore's on, I would like him to explain this because he, again, knows better. I'm just trying to keep up of what to do. But my understanding is if you had perhaps plumbing done, if that has ever had a break and you know what your line is, if you just let us know that, that would be good. So if you have plumbing records or if you have a picture of it, or if you yourself have fixed it and know, or again, if your house is built in 1986 or later, that sort of information. So yes,
What a
we
waste of
can
time.
dig
It is,
that up.
it's a federal, so I think what Melissa's trying to get out is this is a federal mandate that they want to identify lead lines. And like Pat said, copper with solder has lead in it.
Right.
Most hose bibs sold today at supply stores still have a certain amount of lead in them.
Mhm.
You can barely find them without lead in them. So
Pain I've eaten had lead in it.
That's true.
I
That we
think
know.
you're going to get very few responses on this, to be honest with you, because people just aren't going to know.
No, and if it's really hard, you can gain knowledge by going under your sink and taking a
Yes.
picture of
I
those,
think
seeing
people
if you
are gonna be
have,
afraid that they're going to be required to do something.
right.
I agree with you. And that's the key is the line could be something other than lead or copper coming to the house, but underneath the sinks is
Right.
where you're going to see your lead and that kind of thing. So
But
That's
it's
not what
only
we're
gonna be
asking.
in
We're
the
just
solder. Like this
asking.
is
No,
based
you're not
off of,
asking that.
this is based off of like the old lines that like they moved to poly pipe and Wiggler pipe. But back in the day, it was lead. The first 3 feet was lead coming out of the pipe because you get that first curve and then it comes back. That's just the nature of coming out of a pipe. No, out of the main line of the pipe. Like they'd have 3 or 4 foot chunks of lead, 3/4 inch or 1 inch service line. Yeah, because it was soft and flexible, and then they could go with copper or galvanized hard line from there. But before lead became unpopular,
Because no,
it was fine.
Yeah, because they took lead paint. They stopped selling it.
Right.
Gosh,
Yeah,
Long
in
time
the
ago.
late 70s or something like
they
that.
don't even want you
Lead.
swallowing mercury.
Not even,
get
it can't even
regular
show
gas.
Quicksilver
Yeah.
anymore.
We used
you
to
can.
use that
I used to
lead.
love just sitting by the freeway.
So I know, again, I know that was a concern for many citizens getting this letter and it said lead and then people were worried that it was, what had happened. But that's the spirit and what that was for.
And so the
that's-
moral of that story is people, it is confusing, and
It is.
anything we can do to tell people that it is a federal mandate and we're just doing what's required, and
Right.
And I noticed
take
that
the pictures you can, even if it's just opening up your cupboard underneath your
I
faucet.
think it's
It won't-
service line though.
Too. I mean,
Yeah, no.
it's not under the cupboard though, right? Because
Right, it's just the service line and from the
That's what
meter
we're
to your
asking
house.
them,
That's
but-
what we're asking.
But
The gist of it is
the
that lead
service line to their meter to their house has nothing to do with them. Like,
It's-
what are they looking up?
From the meter,
from the meter to the house.
Right.
the meter to the house.
It seems like that's.
So what's the difference between that and the kind of plumbing? Well, it does change.
So if I may, Pat, council, so basically the EPA created this thing, it's a lead service line inventory, and we are required to know both sides of the line. Doesn't matter what's in the house, under the sink, whatever else, they just want to know what the service line material is from the meter to the house where it penetrates the house. That's the requirement for us right now, and that was through the feds.
And so they can't get away with just taking a picture of their side of the meter. It's got to be where it connects to the house.
No, they could actually. It can be identified anywhere between the meter and the house. So if they have a shut-off valve and they can expose it and go, oh, look, it's plastic, then we're golden. And again, after 86 is deemed non-lead, I've had probably 15 emails this week with people telling me what their service lines are and stuff. So yeah, we still have some on our side to identify. Definitely, because we have to identify everything on our side too, to the meter.
But the easy answer for us to tell people at the store is if they dig right outside of their meter box down to their pipe and take a picture of what it is, that will give you the
Yes.
answer you need. Just to dig
Yep.
right outside the box till you see the pipe and take a picture of it.
Yep. Or if they look in their crawl space and they can see where it comes into the house, that'll work too.
Perfect. That's what we were looking for, was the
Yep.
easy answer to regurgitate.
So that's everybody got that, every home.
No, about half,
390.
386, we don't know what.
68.
So that was
How
the,
do we not, I mean, we know what the other ones are supposedly?
Well, no.
So we had historical records that took about 400 and something off the list. 368 there was no records for because when the city of Port Orford switched from their computer program to Tyler, all that information was record. So we lost when the house was built, and we lost when the service was paid for.
So we're just asking, so he's asking for help to do that so that we can help identify those. And we are continuing to work on our side too, to be able to know exactly what's where. But again,
So
it's,
we're required to ask.
we were required to
Required
ask
to
and to
ask.
try to get the unknowns marked off. And then once we know that, then we can move on and we can keep going. So
We fulfill our requirement to federal government, is that correct?
that's, once we continue working down these lists, we do that. And then if we don't, then it's within 18 months, we're going to have to, if you're still on the list, then, we're going to continue to look and try to get all these things taken care of. So it's just an ongoing survey of what kind of pipes we have so we can reduce lead levels to our
Children.
constituents. Yeah.
Not that bad.
I'm going to move on. Super excited about some grants that have been worked on since the printing of this. We also found out that we being particularly Toby Porter has been working very hard with this, and the other groups with the Friends of the Community Building. The goal was to raise $400,000, and that has been completed now because we got a grant from the Oregon Community Foundation and also the charitable branch of the Band in Dunes. We got $50,000 from them. So it's been lovely that they've been able
We may
to.
have gotten another 100,000.
I'm sorry?
We may have gotten another 1,000 is what it's sounding like.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
It could be
Yeah,
5.
so we're
Amazing
trying,
news.
so again, the community block grant has been focused mostly on the community building, but these funds were raised for the American Legion Hall, and the renderings are over here on the, we have a big board of the renderings of what it will look like, and we're having the group is having on Saturday, a kind of community gathering at the community building. So that's the 23rd at the community building on Saturday to kind of, they have old pictures from other things that have happened there and whatever else to kind of maybe say goodbye to the building and how it looks now and to talk about the future and how that's working. So again, we're also continuing with working on grants for the raw water tank, culvert removal, sediment reduction, all of these things. So that is all continuing to be worked on. And then the League of Oregon Cities conference, I went to that last month, and that was really good. Got a lot of good information. I continue to learn and figure out these things and to understand that in Port Orford, we have a lot of similar problems to lots of other places. And so we continue to work with them and get good information from them. So we're moving on. So there we are. Finance report, we will have Ann Heath will have materials to present to us at the upcoming work session. We believe that will be December 5th in the evening. Originally, we had talked about that being on December 4th, but there is the elected officials training by the League of Oregon Cities there in Coos Bay for our region on the 4th. And so new people or people that have just need a brush up on the elected officials, and I will be going to learn more about it. That is on the 4th, and then this Ann Heath financial update will be a work session on the 5th of December. So I wanted to get that on your.
And will that be at 5:30 also?
Yes,
same time?
5:30 on the 5th. Yep. And then the next one would be Public Works. So Mr. Isidore, if you want to talk about this.
No, not really. If they have any questions, I'll answer.
Yep, good.
Thank you for your cleanup. Thank you and your guys for your cleanup after the storm. John, I know you guys were busy all night. I saw you out there.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think we left a lot of it until we get through tomorrow night because we got another big blow coming in late, either tonight or tomorrow morning, one of the two. So, but we still got a lot out there. I think we had about 30 trees total. We had some volunteers from Blue Skies that came down and cleared a bunch of roads for us while we were working for free of charge, which was really cool. And several other community members were out there, you know, cutting and limbing and getting roads open. So I really appreciate that. I think we actually did pretty well for the amount of winds and rains we had, and we had all kinds of stuff going on with that power outage that caused a lot of havoc and turmoil, but we were able to weather through it and keep everything running.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we not have backup generation, power generation at the?
They had one, they pulled one out the other night and then the power came back on. They brought it back to the shop.
Yeah, so what we have is technically right now we have a backup generator at wastewater that for a few reasons didn't run, but luckily the power came back on in time. We figured that out and got that back up today. Coast Guard Hills generator blew a water pump. We were able to manage, I think we went on about 10 o'clock with that or whenever the power went out. I guess it was earlier than that. And we ran on Coast Guard generator power until about 9 or 9:30 in the morning when CCE was able to get us back up. That one blew a water pump, but we were able to MacGyver a garden hose to keep the radiator full. So that one there needs some substantial work, and I'm waiting to find out when the generator guys can come. But yeah, it's something we need to think about in our emergency plan, and is getting a couple of generators, one at either lift station, Idaho, Wyoming, because they're the ones that continuously pump, and then one at Hubbard's and one at the water plant, so we can actually continue to produce water. So water has no redundancy when it comes to backup power at all. When it's down, it's just down. So that's something to be keeping in your minds, that's something we really need to work on.
Would it make sense to have a generator on a trailer?
Well, we have one now, but the problem with that is you got to hopscotch between all the lift stations, so you can't. We don't have a big enough one by any means for the water plant. Hubbard's Creek needs one too, because without Hubbard's Creek running, you can't get water to the plant to make water. So they're two pretty important items. Lift stations, I think the priority would be Wyoming and Idaho, because they're the two that pump all the time. So you basically got to pump one down and then disconnect and haul everything over to Idaho, pump it down, then run right back to Wyoming. So meanwhile, you've got the other 8 stations out there that hopefully are not overflowing, but they're a lot lower flow, so we have a lot more time on them, but you can't really get to them when you have a rainstorm like that, and both stations are running wide open.
Seems like there ought to be some money in some environmental somebody somewhere, or even seems like there's got to be money for that, especially the pumping the sewage and stuff, or I mean,
That's the beginning of
mitigation. What about the mitigation that?
I'm sure there's money. It's just we got to put it on the priority list and get it in the queue with all the
That's
other
always,
things.
yeah, right. That's
And I think we're trying to work on that.
well, yeah.
Right.
And that's a question for you, John, is we've got our things in the queue and we're working on, the brick and this. And so we just have to figure out where does that fit into the queue? Does that go ahead of some other things we need to work on? Or it would be useful to get your insight on that when you think about what the priorities are.
An IGA with the port would be nice because the port has a nice big generator, and doesn't do them any good to sit there. The more you run stuff like that, the better it is.
Is that on a truck or a trailer?
It's on a trailer.
Oh.
And it is feasible because all we do is run the dredge off that. So most emergencies, it's sitting there available.
Right. We wouldn't be dredging during.
No, that's the only thing it gets used for.
No,
That's
that would be
That's
totally
a great
be worth-
solution, or that's like a one we could
It's a
actually
good nugget.
do pretty
There's a
well.
lot of IGAs, things that we could work out with the port.
I mean, even the port, you could even talk with them about storing the dang thing in
Well,
the
we tried
building
that.
just to have it accessible, and we'd need it for dredging, but
We did talk about that before, but if it was more of a partnership.
it's worth the conversation. That's
For sure.
Absolutely. I would say that I'll probably start at some point when I get some time and get caught up. We'll start researching some transfer switches and a way to actually make the plant so that we could plug into it. We met with I don't know, Pat, you remember that we had a problem. We met a while back when we were I don't remember what the issue was, but we were trying to figure out how to get power to the plant. And so they did have some suggestions, but it's going to take a pretty big generator.
Yeah, I remember that. But hey, John, just because it kind of ties in with the sewer station conversation, if you had a new VACCON that didn't leak, could you evacuate a pump station with that and then go dump it out in the plant?
Yeah, you could. You could. Depends on like Idaho and Wyoming. You can't keep up with. We've never been able to empty them with the VATCON or a pump truck. You just all you can do is really maintain, and then you gotta hope you have enough time to go dump it and get back there before it overflows. There are really high flow stations.
Okay, so that wouldn't work then. I was trying to kill two birds with one stone, but
It would work on probably all the other lift stations while the two primary ones are done, but I don't really think it would be that huge of an expense to do smaller generators. They're just 220s, so
oh, you're talking like 4 or 5 smaller generators that you go take out of the back of the pickup and fire up and keep gas in them.
well, they'd probably have to be towables because I'd have to see what the KV requirement is, but I think they'd be stationary. I noticed Florence, just because I was up there here recently, they have portables, not portables, they actually have them standby generators installed right in line. So when the power goes out, they automatically kick on like wastewater, but they're not that big of a generator. I'm not going to hazard a guess of what they would cost, but I don't think that we're talking 100 grand. I think we're talking more in the ballpark of 20, 25.
But that is, I think, the kind of thing where we could get a grant for emergency or,
Yeah.
or figuring it out and then,
With
Yeah.
this,
capacity to do it.
are we talking like a 20 kW or a 40 kW generator? What are we talking, John? Do you know?
What are the motors? Is it a 10 horsepower motor?
Probably 20.
20?
Yeah, I'd really want to talk to CCE because they have a lot better knowledge on the electrical stuff. I'm not that great with electrical.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions for John?
No, just thank you again to the crew. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We got a great crew and they really broke their butts the other night. So I'll pass it on to them for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, John.
Nice work on the garden hose fix. That's storm night, like midnight type of stuff that we like.
I feel like we need a little list of the John Isidore fixes, Guyver fixes in Port Orford.
Well, when you're in a pinch, you do what you have to do to make it work, right?
Right. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Okay, on to planning.
This is just like an update
This is an
of what
update.
they're doing, but it's going to come to us in January, February or something, right?
Perfect.
I wanted to comment on page 18, starting there. It's in a number of places. On 2 sewer line hookups, and down at the bottom of that paragraph, it says, at the request of the developer, the city shall consider sharing the cost of the main line extension or lift station, but the city is under no obligation to participate. And that's said in the water line hookup. It's in several places on the next page too. I don't see the city ever having that option, and I don't even know why that would be in there.
I don't believe we ever have that I'm aware of. Can you think of any? Go ahead. Sorry.
I think it's in there now.
So that is existing language that is in our code. We talked about it briefly at the meeting, and between Crystal and I, we think that that was a holdover from when we first did the sewer, or when the city first did the sewer system. And we were exchanging free hookups for using people's right of ways. Basically putting it in the code that we will, put it in as long as they give us the right to use.
Well, and it's like the agreement that the port and the city did when they did that sewer station. Like it's the city sewer station, but the port will change the parts out, but the city's supposed to maintain it type of thing. That might have been in there for that reason too. I know that.
That's been sloppy. That has been.
We have that paperwork though, but yeah, but it is. And that that line made me think of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to see that a little bit better defined. Because there was the argument that that's not ours. I mean, it's almost like you arrive at, well, we'll do this, we'll do that out of lack of policy or clarity.
Right.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, that,
So we will get
so
our
it would be a big deal to take out.
We were more cautious about taking it out than leaving it in. The only thing I think we talked about was switching it from, I think the original wording was shall, and we wanted to switch it to may. So it's optional, or it's more clearly defined under how the city interprets its code as optional.
Oh, and it gives flexibility for big developments too. Like if you do have someone that comes in and says, hey, we're doing this housing development, we can use this as match, or just some sort of thing that opens the door. And the caveat is the city is under no obligation. I think it's written as an opportunity or keeping a door open more than letting something.
Is it?
That's of the developer. The city shall consider sharing the cost. It is seem weird though, because of the way,
There's one in there.
But I could see it going back to that when it was brand new and trying to work.
Yeah.
But the money, it's hard to picture the city at any time in the future ever having enough money just to say, oh, no, we'll just take that on.
Well, you don't want to create the expectation, basically, I guess is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
So can I interject here for a minute? Because the way I read the code, it read that we may actually pay for the development, but let's think about this. Gold Run was developed, the developer paid for everything to do the sewer line. Tsunami Acres or whatever that place is called down out of California was the same way. D Terrace was developed by the same way. South King Street was developed the same way, where the developer goes in, pays, puts in all the infrastructure, especially the sewer.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the way it was written on purpose, so that if somebody does come in to develop a large area, they're responsible for doing the charge. But it doesn't say they have to. It does say in the code that it may, depending on the city, I believe. I don't know the exact wording right off my head, but it was kind of the city could, share the cost or pay the cost, or the developer would pay the cost.
Says it shall consider sharing, but the city is under no obligation.
Yep. So we could consider it, but we don't have to, basically. And I think that's pretty good wording, because if we don't have the money, and right,
Then we just say no.
right.
It gives opportunity for interagency flexibility. If it was a county project or a port project or some other agency where it was like, hey, we'll give you this much of an SDC fee, but really if we could do a 6-inch line instead of a 8-inch line, hey, city, will you give us that extra fee for that? Like that, just for those conversations. But it does also leave the door open for but anybody can come and ask anything, and the council can say yes or no at any time, really, in a way.
Yeah, and it's 3 months to change an ordinance.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's controllable, but I definitely see why the hairs on the back of the necks were raised on it.
Yeah, right.
Any other questions on the planning?
We could also, I think, ask, because they're still in progress, so since it's legislative, we could ask them if we have questions about it, because it's coming to us officially right later. So
This is weird. On the sewer lines for new development shall connect to existing mains. That's kind of ambiguous. That means you could cross it and connect it anywhere that there's a main line, like not adjacent to your property or anything. But that's not a wordage change, right? Like we're covered on the other wordage in the ordinance for where sewer line hookups go. That'd be on page 19.
You would think it would just be implied that they would go to the nearest one, don't you think? I
Right.
mean, that's what's
Getting the main line.
But it doesn't say it.
Hey, let's make the assumption.
Yeah.
Yeah, assumptions are great around here.
But it being that it's dollars and cents, I mean, it would be fair to assume that
You could add to nearest existing mains, but this will be coming, this is not the time
it would be
to do it.
agreed
Right.
upon, or the approved location or something like that. I mean, to me, I would think that that would be the terms that you would want to.
Well, it makes
set
sense,
forth.
I guess. I'm probably reading into it too much. Okay, well, that's
That's
going to
good.
come before us again. So.
Right. And that's good feedback for Mr. Thielen, so he can maybe clarify those things. That's good.
Any other planning questions?
It looks like they're doing a great job down there at planning.
Yeah,
It's a difficult charge.
and they've got a lot done.
Very difficult charge. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, port.
No, lots going on at the port. I'm gonna just sort of leave it at that for now. There's some projects that are coming along. There's some changes happening, and I'll update the group next month a little more thoroughly. Yeah, is that good enough? Thank you.
School. I believe that would be Perry.
Yes. I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Oh, anything from the school liaison?
No, sorry.
No, that's all right. Fire.
It's in your hand now.
We have our fire chief report that was submitted. Everybody got a copy of this?
Greg,
Great.
we never got
Sorry, I
this.
didn't attend the meeting.
First fire chief report.
That's great.
It's
And
I
awesome.
think it's the second. He did one the other day. He did one before, a little
I
bit
would
before.
like to see this. I mean, I know that we're not in charge of
I never,
fire department, but this is really beneficial to them to show us what they do.
Mm-hmm.
I like to see it. I'd love to see this every single month.
I don't think I've ever seen it before.
No, it's,
I think he turned one in when we were doing the fire contract. It was in there. So I know it's the second one because I
Yeah,
remember
because this is
seeing
what
that
he
other one.
turns into his
Yes.
board. It's
Yeah.
nice.
Okay.
It's
We haven't,
good.
we haven't seen it.
It's good.
oh, right,
Definitely
so that's
appreciated.
Something in. So I wonder if we can get, if our,
It's
If-
not,
could you-
it's not a bad practice for
No,
all the
it's good for them.
liaison reports. Yeah.
can we get, Melissa, could you contact the chairman of the fire board and ask for this to be sent our way? Or I just think it's a great.
Well, and then it makes you wonder if we should call the school and see if they have just a written manager's report that we could look at. And then if we could call the watershed and see if they have a written report that their person does, just to save the counselors times too. And it's a more direct of,
Yeah, we would prefer that they be written so that we can do, and if people have questions on it, it helps move things forward. Yeah.
Right.
And that's helpful to any government to be able to control your message rather than have somebody uninformed control it for you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I think that's great.
And I can talk to also Aaron Miller with the schools and ask them. I know they give reports to their board, so I do that. I talked to him the other day and he think that'd be all right.
Yeah, or just, he might have things to point out that would
Mhm.
be good for us to know.
Right. I agree.
Well, it does seem like there's our liaisons, myself included, in many ways seem to be falling short of what we could do. And we have a lot going on. I get that, but that Pretty good stuff. It would be, well, I mean, you know, if there was an opportunity for us to partner with these governments that are with us, that overlap our jurisdictions, then, and we don't know it because
Maybe as
But I think that's the
liaisons, we're
point
not
is the
using,
liaison. I think that
Yeah,
is the
but
point of having the
right,
liaison,
and the
is
tool
talking
is
to
the
them.
liaison, but that's, we're falling short on.
well, but maybe all the liaisons should call the people, the managers, be like, hey, can I get the written report you give to your board? And then if that spurs conversations between the liaison or, you know, between that, but I think it's one of those basic things that might
That's the
help.
point
I
of
feel
being
bad
to
for all the
liaise.
people that have been, yeah.
Just every 2 years now you have a new chairman at the fire board,
Right.
you have a new liaison at the, Gary or me or whoever. And so if it was more standardized, it would just seem more accurate, more.
Oh, maybe that, yeah.
All this started by this nice little report here, so.
Yeah, and it's all something that as a liaison, you can choose to do or not if you like, but if you want to ask that, it just seems like a good,
Just, you know how you play telephone, right?
yeah,
Taking
exactly.
a couple of those telephones out of there.
Port Orford telephone's even more rigorous. Watershed. Any questions on
Yeah, any
this?
questions on the
Nice
report
written
here?
Dan does a great one.
Yep.
I'm making us all look terrible, man.
Making you guys look bad. I just say we are working on this this grant I'm really excited about to pay back the watershed loan, and so that's kind of what I'm putting a lot of time into right now. So that's been good. And also on the what's called the RFIs, the request for informations for the BRIC grant. So we're still working on those big grants. So anyway, those are the big things.
So you have, they're requesting more information from us, or we're requesting?
They request more information from us, and then we have to have whatever, like 2 weeks to turn it around and get it back to them. And so that's what we are working with Lehigh and Tina at Civil West and Lehigh at CCD to work on that. So
There's a lot of email calories that go into a lot of these things. So
Oh, yeah.
because
we're definitely moving them forward.
it's like you have to get information from the city, and so this is where like the staff time comes in of we got to get information from Melissa or John or whatever to make it happen. So
Seems like the ones that make us money.
Available for somebody out there that could help with stuff like that. I bet you there is.
there is.
Okay.
But it still is.
Moving on.
I'm covering
Okay.
it as best I can.
Okay, Greg, you've been gone, so we know a little bit about parks.
Real quick, parks. We in October we had our 3rd annual Halloween Huck disc golf tournament. We had 69 players show up. It was an amazing event. And December 14th, we have our last event of the year called the Wrap Up. It is a toy fundraiser for our local youth, and it will be Glow disc golf tournament at nighttime, starting at 5 p.m. And we will have the baskets and the course lit up with rope lights and battery power and everything else. So it looks like an amazing experience for our locals. And we can't wait to get some toys for the local kids.
Very cool.
Very cool, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah.
Last year's wrap up, I was able to hand out over 300 toys to our local kids here in town. It was a pretty special event.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
Very cool.
TLT.
TLT, I have to meet with the group to discuss the last grants, and probably February, March, we'll be getting started over again for those grants. I was contacted by Susan at Main Street regarding the TLT advertising monies. They wanted to know if they could spend some monies on an event that'll be a kelp. I think it's a kelp and seafood festival, but I'm not 100% sure. She gave me a website. I haven't had time with the storm to look at it. But Melissa and I looked over the code, and it does advertise 50 miles out of Port Orford. It's a group out of Portland that organize this and get all of our local restaurants involved, and hopefully they'll cook something with kelp in it, and it'll bring visitors from out of the community in to, spend money here. She's trying to get Mr. Ed's to possibly do something and tie some other businesses in. So it's just something they thought would be a good try. So, and it's going to be, I think they're shooting for a February date. So it's an off shoulder season type thing that may bring some people to the.
Winter something. I was going to
Yeah,
look
it
it up
is,
for you.
but I
Winter
can't remember the
something.
name of it.
Kind
And
of
I
makes you
just,
wonder if kelp would be a good binder for gluten-free noodles.
I've been busy, but I did mention that the port, you know, you guys with the kelp and all that may be interested in being involved in that too. And I think she was going to reach out to Tom Calvin.
Yeah, OSU'd be a good one to,
Yeah.
because there is issues with kelp and
Yep.
Your work, that's what Tom is doing.
Yeah, we don't want
Yeah.
people.
So it could.
it's all on the beach now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There was actually kelp's coming back, a lot more than it's been over for 10 years. I've heard more this year than I've seen in 10 years.
So anyway, that's what's going on with TLT right now.
You can't be looking like you're reading it. Okay, thank you, Tim. Main Street, we have a written report. I have to ask, how much resources does Main Street put into the Hughes House?
Oh,
Well, planning for Hughes House teas during the holidays, like that's the Hughes House. That's quite a ways away from Main Street.
yeah, I'm not sure what the connection
Mhm.
is. It doesn't cost anything. Do people pay for the?
Oh, yeah, no, that's my, I always get hang up on when Main Street's not on Main Street, but maybe that's just one of my.
Main Street does have, according to Susan, some of their own funds, not advertising monies from TLT. They get money somehow. I
How
don't
do they have their own funds though? If it's a Main Street organization, like,
They have an amount that when the Karens ran it, there's 80,000 or something.
The Karens. Yeah, that was a time.
I think it might be a local donor
And they-
too, but
and-
no, I just wondering because
it
it's
was
the
grant
fiscal.
money and they spend
Maybe it ties
money.
in with the.
We have advance, right? And charge.
It's not our budget, it's their budget.
Yeah,
that is, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
The question
nothing
is,
about
are
the
we
city.
spending TLT?
Correct. Yeah. And they're always good. They always call and check. I mean, she called and asked for clarification. I knew the code, but I called Melissa and we went over the code word for word to make sure, because I didn't want to be the guy approving $4,500 of funds for advertising, but you know, so there's checks and balances there.
And they are basically our Chamber of Commerce now.
Yeah.
Does it pull up to you?
But there's always.
Holy crap.
Said try putting it on
So
the list.
I don't have anything else but what's written there.
List. I didn't see a list.
The only thing I have on the emergency is we're getting down. We've had numerous conversations and I have had conversations with Melissa about, and I think Tim brought it up, who would declare a state of an emergency? The mayor, Melissa. These are things that I'm not sure how we're going to work out yet.
It would be the full commission.
And then who would, at this point, the city council would be the IC. I mean, it would come down, we're the ones responsible. So if the council wants to get out of that, we need to figure out how we're going to create the incident command.
I think you would have to, someone would have to vest if it would take, I think you'd have to have another government almost to be able to declare an emergency.
I remember, I've said this before, Jessica, when she was working with Monica Ward, said something about we don't have it in our code to be able to declare an emergency and that we need to somehow upgrade our code to do that. I mean, you think we could just declare an emergency, but somehow
We can check into
we
that.
have
but
to
we
have the
declared-
authority to do it or something.
We declared emergency during COVID.
I think it's one of those semantic things. Like we can
Okay.
declare a state of emergency because this system failed or something along, like things that are in our lane, like waterworks,
Right. But
the
it may
things,
be like if we need FEMA funding or something like.
but
we
isn't
have to
that
have-
what the county, but what about like the police and the county and those other agencies? They're not there to help us connect.
We declare our emergency to them
Right.
and then they move it up the ladder
Right.
or whatever.
But currently, there's not much of a chain.
There's not much of a county government.
No.
Well, the thing about it is during COVID, we declared an emergency
Uh-huh.
and we received federal money. So I don't know what this person is speaking about,
Okay.
but it's something for us to check into, obviously.
And
They may be wrong.
absolutely. And Gary, in your research with the emergency committee, I mean, is there, if the county emergency, it sounds like the county emergency person's pretty good from what you said, but is there a way to like the next person up at the state level to be like interacting with to understand the answer to like your question of like who here has to be like in command or in charge at those times?
I
Like
can
who is
bring
the
it up
correct
to
contact
Jeff.
person? Is it Melissa? Is it the mayor? Is it the police chief? Like
Given,
who's the contact?
given that our county is basically defunct or
Yeah.
unaffected, there's nothing they're going to do for anybody. Given that change in the landscape, we've seen it in our police report. We're spending more we're working outside the city to keep our city safe. Right? So I wonder if that's the conversation now that should be.
Yeah.
That's long overdue even, because we don't have that big brother that we would be depending on to.
We might get more out of Coos County. We're trying to establish a relationship with their, but their
Well,
IC
manager, right?
is the fire chief. The fire chief is a paid employee,
Uh-huh.
and the fire department has its own incident command, so it's easy for them just to take it on.
Gotcha.
We don't have that.
Gotcha.
I have this thing, you know, I was talking with the Forest Service about like their fire emergency planning. And so it was shared with me some of what other communities have done. And I was thinking we can do that. You know, it's pretty easy to list the contacts and whatever for a fire emergency, but that's like a different emergency than Cascadia subduction.
Because there's a power grid, the power grid going out
Yeah.
is an issue that, I mean, that's a real threat now. And that could go on for months. We could be without electricity. So we need to come up with a plan. What do we do when we find out that the power is probably not going to come on for a week? We need to know that the council's going to assemble and how are we going to communicate with each other?
Each of our facilities should have its own backup power generation capabilities.
Yeah, but
That
that's going to be a long time coming.
We should shoot for that. I mean, that should be something, and then not even on your end of it, the emergency part of it, but as a city, as you know, what we're tasked to provide to our citizens, we can't do it without, we can't provide what we're taxing them, and we're not going to be able to give them what we've taxed them for.
We couldn't give that if we were to quadruple our taxes, probably.
No, but you have conversations like this so you can high grade and you can
Correct.
say, we can get our water plant running and we can
Yeah.
make 1,000 gallons of clean water a day, or we can
That's-
make 5,000 gallons of clean water a day. And so at least people will have drinking water.
What John was talking about with the
Yeah.
generators, and then we're gonna be the board that decides how that water gets distributed,
Right.
because it's
But-
gonna be very limited.
And to go back on something you said, Gary, what you were saying about the fire department and them having the incident command and the emergency language made me realize that we don't have a whole lot of language in our contract with the rural fire department pertaining to that. So that might want to be something that the emergency commission looks at, is that contract and how to get some wordage in there
Because
for
they're not
emergency.
interested in taking it on.
No, it's gonna be a huge, 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 huge deal.
But they're a fire department, so they have to have some sort of emergency plan
They'll be
for
a
this type of
part
thing.
of it, but
But are we under
somehow-
their wing is what I'm asking. Like, does our contract put us under their wing for all emergency services and catastrophic events? Like, I'm assuming it does.
I don't think, I wouldn't.
I don't think.
But I don't think it says that.
No.
They're not even in, I mean, they're the rural fire department that we contract, right? So they're not really in our, I mean, aren't they having a bigger area but focused on fire?
Well, I
And
mean,
rescue.
yeah, and rescue and emergency services,
Well,
they're our guys. That's I mean, that would be the Port Orford Fire Department if it wouldn't have went
That's the
the way that
problem
it-
is that we've
No, I know, but and he brought it up and I was like, oh, I don't know. I just, my brain, I was just thinking, I
our
don't know our
emergency
contract.
commission allows for members, the board. Am I wrong? No, you guys are allowed to have members that live outside the city limits,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So that'd be cool, or is it defined? Maybe it should be defined as that urban or that rural
Rural fire
protection.
district boundaries.
And then you've got, you're in a position where you can say like, look, we are partners, like it or not,
Mhm.
it's their constituents that would be or would not be looked after.
And I think we have to look at who actually has the like training and skills. I mean, I don't know if anybody has this right now to be an
No,
incident.
there's some FEMA
training.
classes. There's a few
Yeah.
that you can take online, and there's one that you've got to go and get the training to actually.
It's horrifying when you think about it. If you really think, you take 10 minutes and think about what really is going to look like.
Well, I know. I
Do
think
it.
about it all the
What he
time.
does
Oh,
all
I
the
know.
time. He does all the time, yeah.
Right.
And it's like keeps me awake.
But this is in every region in the United States. This happens.
It is. It's
I
just
mean,
different.
But here we are, really remote.
We are.
And we're gonna be
the
on our own.
airport, the airport rebuild is probably the largest, the biggest safety net that we have is that we're close to that.
Yep.
That.
I thought it was the port and the beach and that the boats are going to be able to come into the
Yep,
port. I think
that's
that's
another big
Well,
the-
that's another thing that, because it is the one that's not going to be dumping out debris, because that water will come in and go inland way up and it'll grab a bunch of crap and it'll take.
Oh, if we have the Cascadia, we're not even planning for that. I mean, there won't be that many people left.
No, I'm
I
just
saying,
saying,
I
we
think
don't have
we're-
rivers to worry about.
I think
They can land craft here.
No, they have the fleet, the Pacific Fleet has 4 aircraft
okay,
carriers and.
I'm going to make a motion because we have to extend the meeting if we want to continue. It's at 7:30. And so I would make a motion that we extend the meeting after we take a brief 5-minute break to,
Does Gary get to finish his? thing?
yes, I'm sorry, but
No,
it's,
you're right.
I'll second that.
The motion is,
I heard the motion. I'm
Okay.
waiting for a second.
he got one?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought,
Yeah.
I thought he was
And
answering.
I thought he was
her. I
answering
did too,
her. Yeah, okay. So is there any discussion on that? All right, Greg, would you like to extend the meeting on your vacation?
Negative.
Okay. Perry,
No, not really.
This one's good.
Gary,
Yes.
Tim,
Tim, yes.
What else?
Ann.
and yes.
Oh.
And
You're
Brett.
gonna do it to me, are you? Well, what's on the agenda? What do we have left?
A lot.
Got a
All the
lot.
things.
Okay, yes.
So could I make it, I mean, we're not going to solve, I really appreciate Gary bringing this to our attention because this is one of those things we need to add to the list that are super important.
And
But we're
that's
not
what
going to
I'm-
resolve that
No.
tonight.
No.
We could
And I
talk
just
about
wanted
it
to
for
put it
8
out
hours.
there.
I know, you're right.
That's all I'm going to say about it. And that's why I considered not extending the meeting because we can't go into an, 3
Out
hour.
of curiosity, because I haven't been to the meetings and I'm not trying to extend anything, but do you guys talk on small scale just as much as you do on the big federal connecting the dots and that? I mean, or just like, is there people talking about?
Sure he does.
Yeah, no, and I just haven't been to the meetings.
But the containers, I mean, he's come
Yeah.
to us with
No,
many.
right.
It's hard to remember them.
No, I know Gary has
Yeah.
for the whole time
Oh,
he's
you were
been doing
talking
this
to
gig.
me,
I just
have
mean
that
the
conversation.
committee.
I'm just assuming they do, so I let him speak to that.
Yeah, and we talk about the things that we can do.
Right.
And
The things they
'cause
worry
we
about,
don't,
right.
we won't have any money, but
So-
we can try to get every single person that we
There-
can have a go bag and
Yep.
Yeah,
be ready
that's
for 2 weeks.
That's the kind, yeah,
That's what you
huge.
need.
That's
Yep.
And we're working on.
Personal go bags and personal, preparedness in your own home and having,
I was pretty
Something
disappointed
to
in
do.
myself with the storm. Got 14 headlamps, but I couldn't find one.
I've got flashlights everywhere, but I had to walk in the dark to find them, and I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna break my head.
That's your
I was embarrassed, to be honest with you.
Okay, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.
Yes, please.
Oh, my God.
I may
This conference will now be recorded.
All right.
Okay. Everybody good with the liaison reports?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I gotta go back to page 1.
And that emergency prep is an uphill battle. People just don't want to think about it because they got, people don't want to stress themselves out. So it's
There's a
tough.
problem, yeah.
But if we could just get everybody to pack a go bag and put away some water, that's a big achievement.
I agree. That's the first start of it.
Let's put up their own water, 100 gallons or something. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, and food, go bag,
Oh,
food,
that's-
water.
Nobody's gonna expect that. Hey,
All right.
interesting. Okay. Well, I'm glad we were recording. We are on old business 11. Thank you. Oh, it's on the window. Okay, so this is pertaining to our Port Orford wastewater recycling plan, our Civil West scope of work, which we talked about last month. Picking off some projects and having them come back to us with a scope of work to work towards the water recycling goal.
Which is linked.
Which is
It's linked on this document, so people were able to see that.
okay. Good. Oh, now I gotta go to that. What are you
So I move that council approve this scope of work as the basis for the application that we need to send to Business Oregon to obtain the legislatively allocated funds and to then make moving forward on this contingent upon approval for those funds with the expectation that we'll check in regularly.
Second.
Tidy seconded.
Okay.
Did you get all that? That was a good motion, Ann.
I kind of feel like the scope of work, in my mind, our priority is water. So wastewater is important, but it's not our priority right now. So to me, we shouldn't be putting very much, we don't have any resource to put into it, is what it feels like to me. And so in the end result, I think we have a master plan that tells us what we need to do since up to 2016. So it makes sense to see what new things we need done since 2016 and to focus on those things and not be focusing on other uses of the treated water and to me, we don't have the man hours to who's going to be reviewing the existing available information of the existing water treatment. On the page 2, under tasks, there's a list of things that are going to be done.
You're talking about on the scope?
Yeah.
Okay.
And who's going to be doing that? It's going to be John and you. Well, what are you going to not do to be doing that?
Well, but we're not. Are you looking at the memorandum of understanding or the scope?
No, he's looking at the scope of what it's, I don't know that.
Oh, okay, gotcha. That was the.
Do you have? I will do that.
Yeah, because
I was going up.
There's a whole scope of service that was online.
Right. And so he's going to make copies of that. So basically this is for the wastewater recycling allocation. So that's what would pay for that. That's the money that would pay for that, I think is the idea.
This is for the 750,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we want the most out of that 750,000
Mhm.
as we can get. We need to really know what we can do with that exactly, which I'm not sure if we do right now.
I think it just has to tie to the title of the bill, is my understanding, and which is Port Orford wastewater recycling. So that's what that allocation has to be used for.
And so there's an issue to me to bring the effluent to Class C. What are we bringing it to right now is Class C. So there's no issue with us constantly being able to do Class C effluent.
I mean, I can't say that there's nothing that
Enough
would,
for
you
this
know,
to work.
that is my understanding, is
In
that
the past there was some confusion there. We thought it was, we were number 2 and it needed to be number 3. And so I still am not completely.
I think that's why we have a feasibility plan or a feasibility study this is the thing. So if you recall, in August, we discussed what would be a good way to go, and we approved a proposal and we gave it to Marlin at Civil West. And so the scope of work is how he is fleshing it out more specifically, because we need cost estimates in order to apply for that money. We can't just put in to look at that application. You can't just say, oh, we want to do like our proposal. You need to work with an engineer. You have to have specific cost estimates and all that. So Pat and I and Melissa had an opportunity to meet with Marlin around the edge of another meeting, and he explained to us that he put together this scope of work. He really just thought through what would be the most logical approach, and he kind of did his best to put things into order. And if you look at it, you notice he starts with the feasibility study, and then that's phase 1. And then the next phase is kind of looking more intensely at what would need to happen at the plant. And then from there, he kind of says the next part, well, we won't even say the next part yet, because we kind of have to know what happens in part 1 or 2. And then there might be some options at that point. And when I first saw it, I thought I would like to get more done. I would like to get the UV plant fixed. I would like to get stuff done. And Marlin explained it that he thought it would be more beneficial for us. I mean, that we had to do this feasibility study to understand it better and to understand what the priorities are so that we can move forward.
Just to get the grant. I mean, it's
Yeah.
something we learned. We've been working on grants for the port for 15 years. The same thing. It takes a long time to get your strategic business plan, all this updated, keep everything, and so he's right in that's the first step. It's nice that that's all it is.
Well, he's kind of, I think he saw it as like, if we're going to do this to like assess the feasibility of water recycling and see what it's going to take to get it up to Class C water or whatever, that we're kind of, assessing what might all the things be so that we can then.
Which is a difficult place to be in, because we were already decided that that's what we were going to do. So the feasibility part of it, just the term in itself is.
Well, I don't think
feasible. Well, it has to be, because.
Well, I don't think we have already decided that we're going to do it. I
Well,
think
it has to be, but we have never had like that. That's the thing, and that ties in with this other document, the memorandum of understanding. We need answers regardless of what way the city decides to go with the water recycling project. This feeds into any direction that you go. It's all answers that need to be answered.
And the other part about this scope of service is, if you recall in our budget, or what we said is, why don't we leave $100,000 for legal and admin? So this budget is engineering, and then another 100,000 would be for legal and admin. And then that will give us the opportunity to have the money to pay our lawyer and to pay our staff to do things.
But that ends up taking the whole $750,000 and just pays engineering.
Well, no, if you look at phase 1 and 2, our engineering, and then it goes to phase 3, and the optional is,
It's on page 7. I think
yeah.
you're looking at page 7 has the phases broken out, and
I know the bottom is $650,000.
Well, but if you were to subtract, let's say, if you didn't do those optional things, then you basically have like between $400,000 and $500,000 to do something.
But what
And
I
then-
don't understand is we're trying to get the state money to go to to make recycled water.
Mhm.
We're already making recycled water, right?
we make wastewater, we make effluent that goes out.
So what's the difference between that and
Reuse. I
That
think
it's gonna, you're gonna
reuse.
reuse it. So right now, it just dilutes out into the ocean. So we put our,
does anything different have to happen to the effluent?
It has to be regulated more. Like if you use it in a different way, then you have to test it more often or be in compliance, like on a daily, which I guess in the sewer plant, we are doing daily tests
Oh, yeah,
anyway.
absolutely.
So it would just be
So
wherever it's going has to test for it too, to make sure where it lands, that it's still in compliance.
So that's something extra that we have to do.
Somebody has to
on
do,
out.
right?
But Gary, if I can just finish your question. So I think there's like up to between 400,000 and 500,000, depending on basically after phase 1 and 2, then phase 3, if you read the description, it says, then we should decide how to spend the money. And then we'd have like between $400,000 and $500,000 left to spend on whatever rises to the top. And then, yeah.
So what you had made a list earlier.
Yeah.
And that list is not included in this anymore because the engineer said to go about it this way and then there'll be monies left over to look at your list. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, and I gave him the list that we decided on, and
Correct.
he didn't use that list. He put in, I think, John Isidore's list instead of the one that council decided on. So we could go back and say we would want to do our list, but you'll see he said he did not recommend putting specific things in at this time, that he thought they need to do the assessment.
Okay.
So, but we can change it if we want. I mean, that could be a good thing to do. I mean, that's why what I said in my motion was with the expectation that we're going to use this to apply for the grant or the money. And then that we have the expectation of revisiting it like at every phase.
I'm just disappointed in myself because I somehow missed the link. Just got this document.
Yeah.
And it seems like I could have this a month ago. When did he get it to us?
I'm
A while
I'm-
ago.
September 30th?
He gave it to us. We saw it like the day before the last meeting or something. It was too late to get on the packet.
Is what I'm saying. We could have looked at this and,
It took me a couple hours to read it.
yeah. So
not very
Saw the
familiar
lake
with this.
anyway,
Well, and it's almost like this is kind of open-ended from that angle of like possible projects. Like we want to know what it takes for our plant to produce this Class C effluent at a consistent level. So it's like, this is more of a survey of what in our plant is at risk that's going to keep us from
And what do we
Doing-
need to spend money on to make that happen?
correct.
right.
And then is David going to get us the money from the state, or is the golf course going to pay for that? The city is not going to pay for that.
Well, see, that's a different discussion, and that's kind of how this all,
This is the
this is,
start.
this is us
water recycling.
this is what's shaken out of us trying to do our due diligence. We have our agreements that we've had in front of us. We have the new one that we worked on, which I'll touch on later. But when we had that workshop, this started, and then that we got that $750,000 legislative appropriation. It's not a grant. What we need to do is fill out a form to the IFA, the Internal Finance Authority, that lines out what this project is. It's pretty open-ended. So in order to cover the city, we're like, well, if we go from the bottom end, if we start with our plant and the feasibility study and check all of our boxes before we go to anybody and say, yes, we can do that, or yes, we can do that, and get these answers of how much effluent can we provide? What, the hard answers that we need to do our due diligence and be good to the city. That's what we're trying to get to. And this is an option that kind of leaves the chain of communication open and everything moving along to make that money available and do, like you're saying, check, check stuff off in our plant that will help the city as we go towards this other discussion. But this would be a tool to fill out that paper to the IFA to say, this is what we're doing to activate that 750,000. And it's so pretty damn simple, almost disgustingly simple.
Well, I don't know. I haven't gone through to do it, but basically we needed to even see if it's feasible. That's the whole point, is to say, is this even a feasible thing to reroute our wastewater treatment plant and upgrade our wastewater treatment plant to a point that we could recycle water? That's this whole first piece. And that was the first part of.
In that list of things that we put in together, that we came up with,
Right.
it was pretty bare bones. It was pretty, like, we know we need to be able to, we want it to be water recycling. We want to be able to use the water that comes out back in the plant if we needed it. I actually have the list of what we came up with here if anybody wants it.
I bet you do.
We also, we said we were going to upgrade the UV the filtration system, because that's like a really big one that we really need to do. And that we were going to do the T-joint and the meter for hookup to the potential future recycled water use. And I think what Marlon's take was, this is like what we're guessing is the most important, but we don't really know. And so that's why he felt more comfortable doing the assessment. And then, so I feel comfortable with this, knowing we can come back and say, these are going to be the priorities that we talk about. But one thing.
This is political too. I mean, there's political pieces of this that you can't, I mean, that's the gorilla in the room, I think, isn't it?
Thank you. That's
And-
right.
And
I want you on the commission.
it's nice to have that roadmap provided, and you can dispel that or excuse that gorilla.
We can be informed to make a decision instead of like
Yeah.
not being informed.
Our beliefs
That's
will
what we're
not
trying to do.
drive.
That's the point. And is this feasible?
But I'm going to keep coming back to the point that we don't have any staff hours. We just don't have the staff to give the hours. So on page 3, at the bottom of the page, there's a list of things that we have to provide for scope of work for this. That's the information. Task assumes the city will provide Civil West with the following.
Now, where is that list again? Can you-
Page 3.
Page 3.
Oh, yeah.
Well, so all of these things that he has earmarked for us to do, just reading over
On
this
page
document.
3.
Yeah, very quickly. They're all pretty important things to do, though.
I'm pretty sure that those are all things that are daily data that's taken anyways.
Yeah.
Like that they could pull off of a website.
I'm just saying, Melissa's going to know more than I do.
No, and I'm just saying that in my professional experience, for entities that do water reporting or sewer reporting, there's websites and there's daily reporting and monthly reporting. So that particular issue probably wouldn't be that much staff time. Like it would be the engineers have that information already because they're the ones that built our master plan.
Just saying that we're going to provide it. So
Well, he's
I
gonna,
don't know. I'm just questioning, and I'm going to all the way through this.
For sure. That's good.
I'm gonna
That's what you're
keep coming back, because eventually we're going to lose staff overworking them if we don't watch it. That's my concern.
right.
I mean, eventually you're going to roll your eyes for the last time and say, I can't do this.
so. but the
We don't
good-
want that to
but
happen.
The good thing is, some of this stuff that's getting done is stuff we should already be doing, and we should already have this information.
Right.
Like flow mapping, video survey. They've been supposed to do video surveys of the sewers forever. So all of this is stuff that's getting paid for.
No.
Well, it is. We're getting.
Well, we're
I mean, I guess the answer would be is to put this draft to the IFA and say if this would
seeing
would
if this is feasible.
necessitate their
Right.
application.
Doing that.
Well, no, that's the thing too. And that's why I said my motion was that this moving forward with this scope of work is contingent on the fact that we use this as the basis for the application
Right.
to apply for the legislative allocation. And if this scope of work is approved, then we move forward. And the first step is the feasibility study. And then at each step, I think we have the expectation with the engineer that we hear what happened and then we move on to the next step or not, or we shape the next step based on the first step. So
Do we have control why do we need to know if, how much of the city's wastewater flow could be made available for reuse and for the different locations in the community?
I think the idea is the whole overarching goal is to reuse and recycle the wastewater instead of just allowing it to go and be used once and to be purified and then, diluted out. It's to find another way to use that, like water reclamation. I think, and that's something that has been, a push in our state, and to try, water's an important resource.
Resource to do that at this point is all my question is.
And I don't know, I can't answer that piece. I see the overarching, point of it. And this is to say, what do we, because there's things that we need to do in our wastewater treatment plant to keep it up, to be able to produce C and to have what we need to have, which the whole point of this, I believe, was to say, we have this allocation that would be able to help pay for that, and some staff time. That's part of that built-in piece on the back page, to be able to say, is it even feasible to do this? That's this very first part. Because I don't know. I'm very much open about that. I don't know the answers to all these things. So this piece of listening to Marlon, because a lot of it is going to be, what do the engineers say? Could we reconfigure our plant to be more efficient and to get the things that we need to have with this goal in mind? And so I think that's the whole point of this, is that we're trying to keep the money for the people of the city of Port Orford to keep the sewer treatment plant working well and in its best way. And this is funds that could allow us to have that happen, with the end goal being to be able to recycle the water.
Prepare ourselves to be ready.
Right, to recycle it. However that goes.
Which is going to make us shine. Water recycling is going to be a big deal. And quite frankly, it's optional right now, but years down the road, it's not going to be optional.
Right.
You're going to be forced to recycle your water.
Right.
If we continue to have drought situations and water situations, those
Right.
kinds of things. Because we're not saying this water is going anywhere. Basically, we're saying we're trying to prepare it for reuse by anybody.
Right. And
we
for,
could end up watering the park. I'm sorry, go
Right.
ahead.
no, I agree. And I think that's the whole point, is that this really does put the focus on how do we make sure that our wastewater treatment plant has the equipment and has everything that we need to make it give the cleanest effluent that we can within a reasonable cost, and all of that for the people of Port Orford. I think that is the piece of this, is that yes, the goal is to recycle water in whatever form that is, but we don't have, as you folks know, we don't have money to go buy a new clarifier in there right now. We had blowers that went down.
1,000 isn't even going to start going toward that.
No, but it's going to say, can we even, with our plan, with this money, is it even feasible to do this? That's the whole point. So that's,
Answer some questions.
it's going to answer some questions,
And
because,
hopefully fix a few things.
right, because we don't know. And that's my whole thing. Again, I know nothing about nothing.
Hopefully it makes our sewer water better and we can use it elsewhere.
And I hope it will leave us. I mean, and the other thing is in here, he says the budget is, it's not like, it's like a budget that's considered a not to exceed budget. So it's not like everything is what he's going to spend.
Correct.
It's like, as we go, it's going to have to get adjusted. But I'm hoping there's going to be like $400,000 in here to actually do things,
And you also mentioned, because I have the same concerns Gary does about staff time.
Mhm.
I mean, it could end up that, we get some intern from OSU or something and we have to throw 50 grand at them to help administrate this whole thing. We don't know. But at the end of the day, if we can get our affluent to a better place and where it's useful and possibly where we're not dumping it into the ocean, I think we've done a good thing, in my opinion.
I would say that we want to still make sure that we maintain
We do have
that,
to
so we
send
maintain
some
our,
to-
because
correct.
that's the main thing.
Just wondered if have we ever considered pumping our raw sewage to them and letting them clean it up and we close all our crap down? Because that's how you do it.
Well,
That's how you do it right there. Here you go.
See, I'm
This is what you wanted,
definitely
right?
for that.
Well, I'm just saying, I mean, we could deliver that.
I don't know if DEQ would allow it, but they
Well, I
might.
mean, we pump raw sewage all over the place.
Yeah,
I
it may
mean,
be feasible.
and it's out of tsunami zone, which is gonna be a FEMA thing. So there's funding sources available to fund that project. They exist. We don't have a place in town really. Well, we do up on the hill, but I don't know. I don't know. Could imagine selling some of those properties off and not having to worry about poo ever again. That'd be great.
I like this because of Ann's motion. I think it's contingent on if IFA will accept this document because it is pretty stretched out. I mean, some of this stuff would be hard to sell as water recycling, you know, even though it's all dated to it, like, but might as well throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. I mean,
That's what we gotta do.
it's a good
Give it a
motion.
chance. And then I think we can resolve the staff issue if we have to. I think we can. And it could just be that Melissa just comes running at us, pulling her hair out, and then we end it right there.
No, and what we are saying to Melissa tonight is we do not want to get to that space with you. So,
No.
and we have heard from you at various times telling us that we have capacity issues at the city. And so I think that's what Gary's
Yeah, it's
And I,
responding.
and I,
running at
and I
100%.
appreciate that. I really do appreciate that. But I also am frugal enough. We don't say cheap in our house. We say frugal because it sounds nicer. But I'm really frugal in that we don't have the money just innately sitting here to do these things. So if we can find a way to help improve outcomes for our people and get this, then I mean, that's what
No,
we're here.
I-
We're here to serve. I mean,
totally
our staff is here to serve and to do that for our people. And so I appreciate all of that. I do. And I've been good about letting you folks know about that. But I just, the key is, I don't even know if this is feasible. Is this even reasonable thing for us to even try to do?
So
And
there's-
that's the question for me.
The outlook for our climate looking forward, the climate predictions are for more violent weather. And our outfall is going to be something that it's hard to put it to numbers. You know, how do you put a what if? But if that outfall is designed to, you know, withstand this, but now you're throwing this at it, I think that's something, Gary, that you might kind of, you know, it might help you to remember that thing could get wiped out, you know, that
Oh,
it
yeah.
has been wiped out. And so,
But they're
I think
not,
that's-
they can't take all of our effluent.
Well, I think this is the question. This is the thing. We always get down in like weeds on questions. And if we do a feasibility study and we have the engineer look at things and come up with things, then it's like we will have the answers to those questions. It won't be like, you know, like us answering these questions and not
can't.
knowing,
Yeah.
or, you know, and I would put a lot of trust in
I thought
these
they
guys
said
to
they
help us
wanted-
figure it out.
Didn't they say they wanted everything?
We're not talking about them or they or
Yeah,
anybody.
but
No,
it's hard to divorce the outfall from recycled water. It's you would be a fool to actually try to talk yourself into it, because that's really what we're talking about here, right? It's the only way that you can justify any money being spent towards this is if you are providing that secondary outfall.
no, recycled water. It's that
So-
this money has to have recycled water at the end of
I
it.
understand that that's what we're gonna say.
Right.
No, that's what the allocation says.
But for what purpose? I mean, let's not fool ourselves. We know what this is for, right?
One of the possible purposes is the secondary outfall, and that's
Very
what
good.
we're
Right.
considering
And
as the
that is
feasibility of that.
to irrigate.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So, and that is because our outfall, we're heavily dependent on an outfall that has failed in the past. And a significant portion of your utility bill is paying for that still. And
And that's because part of it was put in a sandbank, totally dumb plan.
No, that's the one that failed. Yeah,
That's
that
the one
was
that failed,
the
right.
first
Yeah.
try.
This
that
one
it
hasn't failed.
worked.
that's the one that
This
failed.
one has not
That
failed.
was not a good idea, whoever up with that one.
We just happen to have this, critical infrastructure in the worst possible place you could put it. I mean, it's just,
Pretty violent.
and I know that we're trying to, I couldn't, if it was just because we want to get into recycled water, I couldn't sit here and support it, but it's because the risk of what will your water bill look like? You don't like it now? Knock that outfall down and get an emergency loan for $2 million or whatever it takes and put that on your water bill and then take a look.
Now,
at
if this
that's
was
what I'm
for a second outfall,
Well,
no, I'm saying that, say there's an agreement with the NAPS and there's a way to, if the golf course couldn't take it, then it could go over and irrigate, grazing land or wherever. And maybe we keep ours and flush it now and then just to keep it. But basically the second outflow is the second outflow. That's our primary, and that the one we have now would be the secondary. Now that, I feel that would benefit the community a lot, and I'd be totally into that. But that isn't what I've seen yet.
Right, and that's kind of, there's been changing, things are changing.
Mhm.
But in like desert cities and stuff, they're taking their effluent and they're pumping it back into the ground. And I wonder if pumping it back up the hill might be something that we consider too. To that end, if we were able to create that clean water, then it could go back up. Or I don't even know if you'd have to send it back up.
And do they ever retreat the water to where it could be potable? I mean, I don't know if that's even possible.
They do that.
Can be done
They do
right
that.
now. There's technology to do it.
Right,
And
so
when you think about just having,
You're saying to pump it back up, to run it back through our water system.
yeah, to use it, because that's what they're doing at, the Southwest. They're taking every single drop and they're pumping it right back into the water table. And they're horrified that they're going to run out,
And I mean, even though we are in such a rainy place, we have our droughts.
It's crazy.
We have
Yeah.
drought already affecting our system. But I still think that, I mean, there's lots of ways this can go. And I think the thing is we're trying to figure out what is the line, what are the next steps. Senator Smith got us this allocation. His aspiration was that we could consider the secondary outfall and put this money toward it. And I think we came up with a plan as to a way that our council would feel comfortable moving forward to it in August. This is now the way the engineer translated our kind of simple plan, because we're not engineers, into like cost estimates, blah, 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 all the things that we need to fill out that grant the application to access the funds.
Right.
After we fill that out, we may get an answer that says, back to square one, this isn't going to work. Or we may get an answer that says, great, this looks good, you guys. We are so psyched to give you the money. And then we can go down the path of learning more, have the feasibility study, have access to money to be able to ask our attorney questions, to consult with our attorney, and to have some money even to allocate for staff time if we needed to. So to me, these other questions, like if people have questions or ideas they want to put into the feasibility study, we can send that back to Marlin. Or if we have things we want to take out of it, we can send that back to Marlin and say, these are adjustments. But I think the general arc of where we need to go with this opportunity of the money that Senator Smith got for us, I think we have a good general plan with this.
Is he satisfied with, not that he matters to make the decision, but does anybody talk to him about what he thinks about? Just because that's.
Melissa,
I'm sorry?
did you know Senator Smith's take on, has he?
I don't know that he's seen this. Again, it was in the packet, so I don't know. I know he's been very interested in this.
I thought he liked our
We'd talked about
plan or something, or he was.
we talked about the fact that understanding that if this legislative pass-through is lottery money that we could use to help make sure that our wastewater treatment plant is at a point where it could do wastewater. Because again, the key is that it has to tie to the title of the bill, and the title of the bill was Port Orford wastewater recycling. So as long as it does that and it's moving us toward wastewater recycling, I believe that was
And if you recall, there's this other component that anything we spend the money on, we have to own. So that also put us into this mode of figuring out how do we spend the money on our side of the joint.
Gotcha.
So-
That way we have it and it's for our people and to improve our wastewater treatment plant, and that because we already have that responsibility. And so this just helps us with that responsibility more to make sure we have better equipment and better things to help that.
Part of my thinking is that Mr. Smith is in a very powerful position in Salem. And we are in a position of need. And if it's a little tweak here and a little tweak there that completely satisfies this gentleman, then it's important to do it. And whether you like the project, you don't like the project, think of it as giving a gift when you go to ask for a loan, or, you know, you're going to go ask your grandpa for a loan or something like that. You take him his Werther's, you know, and so think of it as the Werther's that you're going to take to, you know, really think of it as a much larger project than this. Anyway, okay.
Well, and even necking it down to where we know that we have agreed with our wastewater treatment plan, and we know the agreements we have that there, you know, that we kind of said that we would put a T there, make it available. So we can put a T there and do all the stuff we're talking about in order to get that T there, not for anybody, not with anybody, but in order to water recycling, we have people interested in it. Our project is we want to put this 8-inch T in the ground. They can reduce it down or whatever they want from there. But in order to do that, you know, our plan needs to do this, this, and this. And then it kind of necks this down or finites this down into that particular, this is where we're going. We want to have this available. But it's, I have a hard time with the open-ended tickets to engineers. It's expensive. One of my personal,
he seems to be pretty fair.
No, he is. It's just, but these phases and it's like, we don't even know the project that we're phasing.
To Gary's point is that it's the political pressure that you receive from the community that says you're spending what on what.
Right.
And I get that.
But in this particular instance, this money is earmarked for a very particular thing, and that's why
the public doesn't understand buckets of money.
Well, I know, but that doesn't mean
that doesn't mean that we don't have to do our best to understand buckets of money and try to, with our judgment,
and
figure out ways to.
Perry Rask had her hand up for a while now. Sorry, Perry.
Oh, that's okay. I took it down because basically Ann made the point that I wanted to make, which was to say that this is not a question about, excuse me, about the golf course or about Senator Smith. This is a question about money that's been made available to us for a specific purpose. And as I'm understanding this document, it is to do a study and do the things necessary to find out what we can do with our wastewater recycling. And it's just, I think, you know, the references to the other parties really need to be left out of it because they're just not relevant.
Nope, I agree.
Well, if you don't know where the money's coming from, then you could, whatever, that's.
But the money was earmarked for this purpose and it's not specific at all except to wastewater recycling. And so we can't do anything with it until we determine what our capability is to do something with it.
Right. So then we determine it and we go back to the same guy and say, this is what we need. We're playing along. There's your Werther's. If you don't understand that, you don't understand politics.
Okay.
Forget it. Like I'm good with all, I got my answers.
Yeah, I did too. I wanted to make sure that what I had was addressed, and I feel good.
Okay. And I agree with you. Coming back. I was more worried about tomorrow for some reason than I was.
Okay. So are we,
worse tonight, isn't
so
it? There's that weird little blip,
we're up for a vote.
that weird little port blip. Like, hey, the tail end of the storm's just for you guys. I was talking about the storm.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so we're ready for the vote now that I'm done talking about the storm? All right, Councilor Rask.
Yes.
Councilor Burns.
Yes.
Councilor Pogwitz. Yes. Councilor Tidy.
Yes.
Councilor Velisis.
Yes.
and Counselor Webb.
Webb, yes?
Okay, and then the second half of this, A2 was the Elk River ERPD MOU. Things have been languishing with the attorneys after our workshop. I thought that when we came out of that workshop that we were still, like, our main objective was to figure out who was going to pay for the attorney fees and to start, because we wanted to start working on this memorandum of understanding. I took out of that meeting as a member of memorandum of understanding being just kind of an outline of all the various documents we would need to cover an agreement like this. And I got with Senator Smith and we worked on the agreement, which it came back as a memorandum of understanding. But I thought that this was going to be more of just the agreement that we were going to base the memorandum of understanding off of. We made a few tweaks to it, but it is very similar to that agreement we had in August or sooner? No, not August. Way
Has our
Earlier
attorney,
than that.
has our attorney looked at it?
Our attorney has not looked at this one because that wasn't the channel that it came through. So
would make
I
a
talked to,
motion to send this MOU to our attorney
Second that.
to look at it and perhaps get it back to us with some information next month.
Any discussion on that?
Second that.
That already did.
I would just say that I know we have talked before that Pat has talked about not wanting to spend taxpayer money on this. And so we might want to put a cap on how much that would be, and or we might want to wait till we actually get the money in the other thing, which is what we're hoping to get is money to use. It's a little bit, could be putting the cart before the horse. But if you want to have the Port Orford taxpayer money go to it now, I mean, we could.
Well, this was put in our packet.
Right, and it as a part of this discussion being a possible water recycling project, and this was the latest version, so I just wanted to see.
That money should be pulled. It should be, you're tallying the money the time that you spend, staff time.
Yeah, because
Should
we've
be-
already spent staff time, right?
Should be in a separate category and you should be billing that grant when it becomes available.
we can't do that until until we get that.
That's what I'm saying. But that's what you're doing. You're keeping track of your time. This is how much time that is part of that is not costing us the money.
It is.
That's,
We should be keeping track of that time because I have heard.
that's how you do it.
I have heard the applicant we're speaking of mention on more than one occasion that they would be happy to pay the attorney fees. So
However,
I do understand that.
Okay.
It needs to
But
be.
this is a pretty simple document. I can't imagine.
But here's the thing, Tim, I will say, since January, the last time at the session, I have like 3 or 4 questions about this that I've asked for answers to that we've not gotten answers to that are going to require us to ask the attorney for more, not just like, is this okay to sign? And I could make the list of those questions yet again, and we can send them to our attorney, but I'm not going to feel comfortable agreeing to this until I get certain questions answered by the attorney.
Yep.
And I don't feel like I mean, we could ask her what she thinks of this agreement. I have more questions, that are the things about like, we don't really understand, we just learned in whenever that was August about how this is going to be under our permit, our water NIPD's permit. We never quite got that before. And so we need to understand what that looks like and what that agreement is. We have to understand different agreements that are going to come as opposed to this like take one bite of the elephant and then come back 2 months later and there's going to be another bite of the elephant and another bite. And so then I would like to know when are we legally obligated beyond which point we can't go back? I don't understand that. I'd like to understand it. Those are some kinds of questions I'd like to ask the attorney.
That probably would be a question we could ask when we send this document to the attorney.
That's a really good point, though, because we
But,
do have so many unanswered questions still from the last agreement. That is
But
pretty.
this is what we were asked. This is the process that we agreed to. And now we have the document in front of us, which the next step, in my opinion, is to have the attorney take a look at this to see if it's even feasible. I don't know that it is or it isn't.
Right, but now is also the time that people would ask questions to add to go with the attorney based on this document. So if Ann had 4 questions to add with this, now would be the time
I think
to
we
add
should
those,
add
to
those to
send.
that motion, yes.
Well, I asked those questions back at the work session
Right.
we had. I asked some of those questions. I have more.
Mhm.
And at that time, we were saying, well, we can't ask the attorney this because we don't want to spend the money of taxpayer money on the attorney. And then the ERPD folks said, well, we'll pay for the attorney.
Mhm.
And then our attorney said, well, that's not really ethical. And so she doesn't want to work that way. So that means we do have to, if we are going to move forward, have to, front load it with the money that we may or may not have. As far as I know, our budget is like 0,
Yeah, I
but
don't know how
so
we could
that's,
have the money to do that.
that's kind of where I'm coming from on it.
That would be
Right.
an expense that would be related to the project, which would be to provide, recycle water. It's.
It all is. I mean, the big thing is making, like, just to reiterate on that last motion too, is making sure that IFA will even consider that as feasible.
Right.
And we may not have an answer until that point.
And it's pretty ambiguous as far as a water recycling project for even a legislative appropriation is the only thing I worry about. But actually the motion is done and voted on, so it's just gonna go there and they'll tell us at this point.
Yeah, don't let us know.
After we do a bunch of work to apply for the grant or apply for it, we will be doing
No,
I'm
no,
sure
no.
hours of work to apply for it.
It's not a super simple
It's not
one
super
pager.
simple, like we're just going to throw that over. It's like there's going to be.
So you don't think that we could send that document to IFA tomorrow and be like, would this be pertinent information? Do you think that this is like narrowed down enough
I
to
think
be
what-
able to fill this out with you guys just to save us the time before we spend it all out? Tawny's super nice and approachable about
Right.
things.
And she's waiting for us to fill out the paperwork
application
to
form.
do
Right.
that.
And
She's
so
waiting.
if we showed her the scope of work and said, Tawny, is this like, could we get the information we need to fill out this document? Then maybe it wouldn't be that much staff time.
They have the
We
application.
have to fill out the application. That's what she said. I mean, I think we sent this past her and she said, well, we need an application. So that's why
Right.
we had
And
to get the thing from
And then we have to get all
Marlin.
this because they
And then
do
we-
want.
And it was a long
finance,
time
they do
ago when I worked for Mesquite Water District, but I've literally sat and talked on the phone with Tiny Bean and filled out an application. Like, I'm not
that's what
saying
I'll be
it's
doing.
not work, but we're talking about $750,000 here that we're trying to, use for the city as best as we can. So it's gonna take some staff time
Right.
regardless.
And that now that we have this,
And I hope
approved,
that's
then I'm gonna be
streamlined.
able to do
hope
it. Right.
that
And I
would be
think
like,
it,
Tiny, we
I
look
think
at
it will.
this, can
Exactly.
we fill this out and move on?
because I emailed with her today about
But,
it. And they're
but
gonna
we
discuss it.
still are in a weird spot right here. We have a motion on the table and brought up, I think, like this is kind of everything that we've been doing in a nutshell. We have this agreement, which is pretty similar to all the agreements we've had so far. We want to have it ran by the attorney, which the other document's been ran by the attorney a couple times, but we still have unanswered questions. After multiple meetings, after a workshop, after everything, we have these questions, which Ann literally has listed that I wish we had in front of us so we could say, yeah, let's send those to the attorney too and get those questions answered. Or do we want to just appoint a committee or Ann and someone to come up with a list? Or just, I mean, it's Ann's list, but just one other person to look over with it and then send that on. Can we authorize something like that
Well,
tonight?
we did the work session. I mean, we could go back and look at everybody's questions from that work session and.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. Is that something that you guys would be willing to
I'd be
enter?
glad to add the questions to my motion at this time.
Okay. Would anybody,
The motion could fail.
right.
And then we don't even know if ERPD would agree with this particular MOU.
Just,
It
will
came-
I think they would.
I
I
thought
would.
you and
Well, you're right. It was me and DBS, so we don't know. It wasn't any, yeah, but he, I believe, is still a consultant for the ERPD, so that should
because it's a
cover
lot
that.
different than what they.
Originally came with,
Yeah.
yeah.
But this is still stuff we've been talking about for 8 years.
Mhm.
I mean, really, this document doesn't say a whole lot different than what we've been
Well,
discussing.
It doesn't answer some of the questions that we
wanted-
had for.
We've never had those questions.
They wanted unlimited affluent, and this says that they get what they get.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
there's a number of different things like that.
Yeah, there's a couple little variations.
Well, I think the
And we
question
did, yeah.
is-
And I did go with the biggest hot issues based off of that document, but it was only based off of this document, not the workshop and all the questions. Go ahead, Ann.
I just think the biggest question is, you know, if we were to move forward with this MOU, like at what point are we, since we haven't done the feasibility study, since we don't, and feasibility has to be, you know, like one of the things that we have talked about is city capacity. Like if this thing is going to be under our permit, and, you know, we already are struggling with like reporting requirements or whatever, like, do we have the capacity to do it even? You know, feasibility means many things. Can we take this on as a city? So I don't understand, like, if we sign these agreements and we keep signing them, like, then we won't have the opportunity to fully understand what we're getting ourselves into. So that's what I'm worried about, this is what I've been worried
I feel
about.
responsible for the town right now and in the future of, you know, this MOU being right for the city, and that there's no expense or liability to the city in the future, period. None.
And
And-
I don't know
Well,
that
and
that's
that
what
may
this,
be
and I
what
don't know that that's what
our
this
attorney
says.
says when we send it. She may want to add stuff to this MOU, but we won't know until we send it.
No, I agree.
So I mean, we're kind of in between a rock and a hard spot, because this is what we determined the process to be, and here we are. So I would feel comfortable adding questions to
Mhm.
the motion
This would be a good
if
time.
you have the specific questions.
Mhm.
I know at least two of the ones I heard were very pertinent.
Well, I have just a few. I don't feel like I have my comprehensive list here because I just kind of thought of a few off the top of my head that I did have a big list back in June of things I'd like to really, I feel like I would like to know before we would move forward with this. But we could ask a few. And I think, Tim, to my mind, there's two ways forward at the moment. One is we can say, you know, let's get that money. Then we have the money. We can actually make sure we have plenty of time with the attorney, or we can move forward with it now and, you know, have a limited time with the attorney, and it might take a while anyway because the attorney might come back and say, well, I can do this much now for $500, and then we'll wait. You know, so it's kind of a matter of time. I think it's either now or it's
Right.
how do we know how long it will take to access those funds? I mean, if we,
I have not done this process, anything like this before, so I haven't heard anything about that. I know that just in talking that, you know, this is very similar to the other one, the other MOU that had come forward, so I don't know.
In my experience, it's surprisingly fast. It's like
Oh,
the application gets
yeah.
accepted, it probably has to go through their legal team, but like once it gets signed, sealed, and delivered, it's like, what
done.
bank account do you,
Oh.
what LGIP
Good.
account do you want it in? It's pretty fast, once
Okay.
the application, once they stamp it.
Okay.
When was this money appropriated?
When were we going for the last session?
Last fall. Okay, so when does it sunset? I mean,
it doesn't.
it doesn't?
It doesn't
Not a
sunset.
biennial
Okay,
one, 'cause
all
the
right,
money is
all right.
different, but good question.
Yeah, there's no timeline on it.
So I think in what I've understood from the lawyer too, is she said usually how she has seen these work before is that, you know, they bring a proposal of what they think, and then she would send, but the ERPD comes with thoughts on that, and then they go back and forth and all of that. So if this is the piece that you want me to now send to her, that's the motion, then that would be the next thing that she could do. And then she could tell you the legality of if you know, it makes sense to sign it or not.
Yeah, I
I
don't
guess
know.
those are the questions of what you would like her to,
Yeah.
look at.
The three that I have here, which I think are three of my top ones, there's probably other ones too, is, you know, does signing this MOU create a legal obligation for us moving forward? Like as we learn more information, if we learn things that it changes our mind. I mean, when do we, you know, and, you know, that we don't fully understand yet how this will be operating under our NIPD's permit. You know, I think, so we need to understand more. I'd like to understand more about that. That may not be a John question. That may be an EPA or question or DEQ question. Would like to better understand, this thing about the ramifications of like, if for this agreement, if we do end up approving that we're going to allow this pipeline, then, are there any implications for that in terms of like annexation of lands to the city or things like that if we create the physical connection to the city, meaning requirements to provide water or anything like that? I would like to get a better understanding of that.
Well, on the other side of that annex question is, can we, like not only the obligation, but can it even be done without annexation? Like, can you even connect those dots without having it annexed into the city? Because I know when the water district had connected to a spot out that where the fire training is going to be, they had to annex in to be able to put water out to there as a requirement, not as anything other than it was a requirement for that utility. I don't know if it's the same. I just know that little parcel, that plywood mill, is annexed into the Nasika Water District now, and the county okayed it.
So those are like, I think, 3 of my top questions. I probably have more, but I think that's what I was saying earlier of like, I feel like there's going to be a lot of questions, and so the idea that we just sign a little thing as we go, and I know, it just makes me uncomfortable to not understand.
And I'm uncomfortable with the money it's going to cost for the lawyer coming out of our budget.
I thought in the past, it had been, they'd made really clear that Elk River would pay for any costs incurred by the city for the project.
But none of that's been written down, so we can't really send.
So any of the support that the city's been offering, it's hard to change your end of something and not expect the other end of it to change too. I think some of the support that was garnered before from previous councils was based on that understanding that we don't have any money and that that we can't afford it and we won't move forward. Unless the cost is
We didn't have $750,000 available at that time. That was the difference. That was what made it
I think
so
that's what
like
this is
black
hinging
and
on.
white difference is we're not spending a dime because we don't have it. Now there's $750,000 available, which has changed the tone of the conversation, not the facts or the black and white meat of it, but
does that?
But our lawyer doesn't want to take the money from that $750,000.
Right.
She would.
Yeah.
Oh,
She doesn't want to take it from Elk River.
Correct.
Because she's our attorney.
She's
She
our
doesn't want to
attorney,
get
so that
paid
puts her
by
in a
someone.
Take it from
Conflict of
But
interest.
I mean, you could run it through you can send it to us and there's 100 ways to do it, but that was just it.
So all this is the MOU, meaning we send it to the attorney looks at it, they have some tweaks, they don't have some tweaks, they send it back to us, and then we decide if we're going to approve it or not. But I don't know how fast we're going to know if they like our plan for the $750,000.
Right.
I don't know how long that's going to
But
take.
Pat thinks it won't.
Well, and that's the thing is
Yeah.
until we have the
Well, we'll start working on
feasibility
that.
of anything, how do you sign an agreement unless you know it's feasible?
Well, it sounds like you have a connection at IFA.
Oh, sure.
You're
Yeah.
a first
Probably
name,
would have to-
No, I just mean, but
Yeah.
the project itself, like until you know it's feasible,
Right.
how do you start writing?
Well, that's what I'm saying, but
Or how do you sign an agreement that says we can give you anything until we know? And that's the whole point of this.
Contingent upon.
Yeah.
You write the whole thing
Yeah,
up
and that's-
say contingent upon.
Well, that might be a word on this document that would just fix
I
everything,
agree
right?
with that 100%. That is contingent on us receiving the 750,000
Oh, I like
It's not
to-
costing the city.
to spending to our satisfaction. Spending, we haven't really, we have a plan, but we don't have a plan until we do the studies that the engineer recommends. It could completely change. What we thought was important may not be as important as something else. So it would be contingent on,
certified engineered plans that are with all the DEQ permitting.
Depending on our,
Right. Yeah, no, that contingent upon language really opens up all these conversations so much and takes the liability out of the city. That's
well, it's obviously makes everybody feel more comfortable without a doubt.
That definitely would make me feel more comfortable.
In fact, I'm sure you could write in that if it doesn't get funded, that any expense incurred to get to that point would be paid for by the developer. I mean, you could say anything you want. They want to make this work. They want to make it work. And
We just have to make sure that we're not putting the city in any liability.
I mean,
That's our job, I feel.
now's the time to get creative with things and get what you speak of. And,
No, it might cost $3 million to get the plant up to grade to do the Class C affluent. And so David finds the money or ERPD comes up with
however
the
that
money.
works is, I agree with you 100%. We don't have money to do it, even if we wanted to do it. It was the greatest thing, sliced bread, this and that.
The key,
It's not about, making a decision about the golf course at all. It's a matter of we being able to offer the affluent.
ironically, I was the deciding vote 10 years ago for the signing it onto the wastewater treatment plant. And the way when my head sat on it was exactly that. This is, so in my brain, like my thought process was this is about an option B outfall. This is like a totally super, like the most important piece of infrastructure we have almost, and we have someone that's offering us an option B. So I'm thinking in the city limits, only the city, somebody's offering this huge thing. But the thing that really threw me for a loop the whole time that flipped me around on it was the documents that I see in front of me. They're not talking about an outfall. They're talking about a spigot that can take a lot of our effluent for certain parts of the year. But if it doesn't say that you can dispense all of your effluent at any time, then it's not an outfall. I'm just saying that's a big thing in my brain of, is it an outfall or is it a spigot? And if it's not an outfall, it's a hell of a lot different.
It says in the memorandum that they can say that they can't take it right now.
Right. And
So then
And we can also say, we're not going to supply it anymore either.
Right.
It goes both ways.
Right.
Well, no, but that's the thing.
No,
That's, and if you take away our out,
It'd be smart of us to do that.
Right.
but my motivation was to have two outfalls, not to take away from the existing outfall to make that outfall work, is to have two outfalls. And that's what's going to be the benefit to the city, is if they end up with two outfalls that are functional.
But the second one needs to be able to be the primary if it needs to be the primary.
Right, that's what I mean. Outfalls are outfalls. Like, it's like,
that's a matter of holding capacity.
In redundancy.
And so
Redundancy is.
We're going to have the most affluent in the winter when they don't need any. And they're going to need the most when we have the least amount of affluent. So.
and that's for, those are
that's
the
what I'm
kind of
saying,
things
it's
that
the
other people
holding
need to
facility,
do. Yeah, we
right?
need to say, we want two outfalls.
Hold that water and they may on their end.
They have a holding facility there, a pond for when, for that low times and high times, guys.
Talking about expanding that if required, if that's the deal breaker, but we want.
Or maybe a deal with the NAPS or some other thing to be able to work into that.
There might be Cranberry guys that want your water here moving forward. I mean, times are changing. It's true.
Because what happens if the, not saying that we want it to happen, but what if the golf course fails? Now, here we are.
Well, there's going to have to be a performance bond that's,
So
just.
Yes, and we still have treated effluent. We still have something, we just have to find another user.
Well, and that's why I really like the process that we have I mean, I feel really good about the process that we've outlined, which is do the feasibility study, look at what it takes for our plant to do this, look at what we can do. And then we're like moving forward from a position of being informed and really understanding things and not just, from somebody who's working with our city's interest in behalf, in mind. I mean, to me, we can get to this place of feeling really confident about making a good decision in a way that I don't personally feel like we're at that moment yet.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're nowhere near that moment, because when this goes to the attorney, there may be more questions, and there's still going to be more questions we haven't thought about throughout this whole process. We just have to make sure we're covered on them.
And the attorney and be like, we want an option B outfall that'll take all the outfall we can at no liability to the city. Write it up and get back to us.
The reason that we wanted to keep that thing healthy was in case these guys weren't able to do it. I mean, if if they could show holding capacities that would be adequate, then, then
It changes
it
it.
changes everything.
But I don't think we should get in our head primary and secondary. We get in our head two outfalls, two fully functional outfalls is what,
That's what we said in
that's
the
what
past.
I was based off
But
of in the
then we
past.
talked
But we
about,
need to define
that's
what
not
that,
enough.
what that
Remember?
is.
there was the question of how much is enough to keep that flushed and flowing.
And that's where the feasibility study.
Right,
comes in.
and that's the answer that we've got to have.
Yeah.
And maybe that, yeah, like when we talked about it, I mean, that is the ultimate goal of this feasibility studies is to end up with two outfalls. And maybe that adds a little bit to that scope that is the end game is we want two outfalls. Period.
Well,
You can call them what you want.
but the
You
money's
can-
for
You
recycling.
can phase it how you want, you can call them, but we just want two functional outfalls. Even if it's, one does have to be shut off for a while or whatever, it has to
Well,
at
and
least
the-
have a
and the-
contingency that says in worst case scenario, we have this much pond that you can dump effluent into.
But I don't think we want to be responsible for the pipe that would go to become the outfall. I think with this plan, it's mostly to get to a pipe
I'm
outside
pretty
of
sure
the-
when you spend 750,000, if we spend money on that pipeline, it's gonna be really hard for us not to be liable for it.
Well, we're not spending this 750 on that pipeline. We're spending on this side of the T. I mean, that's the whole idea because we're not spending money on something that we have to own and then be liable for.
Right.
Is kind of where we're going for now.
Right,
That's my
which is
understanding,
directed
because we're
us.
not going to come out with this with a fully functioning outfall, secondary
And
outfall.
if our outfall that we have now, where it's washed out in the winter, well, that's when most of the effluent needs to
Yep.
go somewhere. It's gonna, right now, it'll just go overland until it gets to the ocean.
Well, the outfall would be, if it gets washed off, I think it would be
They get broken off under the ocean.
If it gets broken up under the ocean, Mr. Webb is right. It'll be rebuilt for millions of dollars and we're gonna be on the hook for it. Cause we're already on the hook for two of them.
Yeah, we are.
Failed one and a new one. And we'll be on the
No, I
hook for a
know.
third one. And I know there's people that say that it won't fail, but one already failed. So that is a big concern of mine.
Anything can fail. Anything can fail. Any brand new, like,
Titanic, right when you
always
said-
remember, even the brand new stuff we buy can fail.
If we weren't talking about a secondary outfall, I don't think we'd even be talking about this. To be honest with you, there'd be no other reason to talk about it.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
Although,
Unless we were making money off it.
yeah, and yeah, if we can get to a point, yeah. Perhaps
Because our
then.
priority is still water.
Yeah, but sewer's really important. Sewer can become the priority tomorrow. Just with the
That's right.
affluent
Go
conversation.
break your water line under your house and then break your sewer line under your house and tell me which one's the priority.
Well, you think it's the water at first,
Yeah.
but that's a perfect analogy because it's a week later that gets you if you don't think about everything up front. Okay, so let me refresh here. We have a motion in a second on the table.
And I can add something to the motion.
Yeah, because did we add the questions?
I'll rescind my second.
And you wanted to add some stuff too, Tim?
Well, I want to put contingent on approval of the $750,000 wastewater recycling funds
Okay.
would be the first thing.
You would add that to the MOU?
Yes.
You want to rescind your he rescinded his second. Why don't you rescind your first and start all the way over?
I'll rescind my first.
And just add questions
Yes.
in general.
So contingent on approval of the $750,000 wastewater recycling funds. And
Whatever questions we come up with.
Well, contingent on the outcome of the feasibility study.
yes.
And answers to other questions about, well, see, these are questions, this is not going to go in the agreement, I don't think. We have questions about legal obligations that this agreement.
Pardon me?
I said, these are like questions about the legal obligations that this agreement would get us into, not like things in the agreement.
Or both. Both, but that is like, and that, I mean, that's because that is a big.
Okay, so let's put it in. We'll just put it in. And you've got it contingent upon the 750, contingent upon the outcome of the feasibility study, contingent on the answer to questions about the legal obligations created by the MOU.
If those are all contingencies, you almost aren't ready to do this.
Well, yeah.
Some of that stuff.
But that's the whole point that Ann's trying to make is we have these unanswered questions.
Well, and I got that until I started adding them to that. I mean,
Well, I was just going to keep them separate, but then Tim started like,
Right,
working on this. So I don't know how you want to propose it.
You could read that list of questions. And if everybody's okay with it, the motion could just say, it's list of questions.
Whatever questions come up before.
I mean, I cumbersome.
Mayor and council, I'm about ready to excuse myself from the meeting.
Okay. You got 2 more minutes for us? Nope.
Gone. It could give a target.
No, I'll wait for a vote, but I need a vote. The place I'm at is going to close pretty soon. I didn't think it was going to take 4.5 hours and not even be halfway through the meeting.
Okay. Well, then if you got to go, you got to go. You're out of town. I totally understand.
So we could do something as simple as accepting the memorandum of understanding contingent on approval of $750,000 wastewater recycling questions and outcome of the feasibility study. And then
Send that to the lawyer.
send that to the attorney, have her look it over and see what else needs to be added. And in the meantime, we could submit questions too.
Right. Because it is going to take time for review. The IFA question is going to take a long time. It is holidays. So, I mean, we're moving forward. That's the thing that we wanted to accomplish.
And we're hoping that the money would come out of the 750,000.
Yes.
I would like to see the money come out of that. But I mean, the question, and this could be another question we could just ask Tawny, is if we're starting to accrue costs
Right.
now, because some monies, they don't let you start drawing on them until you get them at hand. And some of them you can start accruing costs. And
So that's the order we do this. Obviously, the IFA is the first conversation. And then if they say it's feasible, then we can send it to the attorney. Or it's pretty laid out then, and we have access to it and we can ask those questions. But like I say, I think the review and the time, we'll get to next month, and we've gained tonight. We're possibly gaining tonight, and then we can go from there.
I want to thank you, Pat, for having this conversation. And I mean, the things that you put in here, I think were really good things that you did. So thanks for moving the
Working
ball
on that.
on that.
Sure.
So I would make a motion to accept the memorandum of understand, or to send the memorandum of understanding to our attorney contingent on approval of the 750,000 wastewater recycling funds and contingent on the outcome of the feasibility study.
Well, I guess we're going to send it to her before we get the feasibility
Right.
study. So just,
Okay,
we can leave that.
okay, I'll leave that.
We might add that to the proposed agreement later.
Okay. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. Counselor Tidy.
Yes.
Counselor Rask.
Yes.
Counselor Webb.
Webb, yes.
Counselor Velisis.
Yes.
Counselor Burns.
Yes.
Counselor Pogwitz.
Tim, yes.
All right. Thank you for your time, Greg.
Have fun, Greg.
Sorry. All right. Have a great rest of your meeting.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Enjoy your time.
Okay.
Okay.
I wish I was there now.
Sending this to her.
Thank you all for that. 12, we're on to new business. 12A, Resolution 2413, Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board. And that is on page 26.
We're here now. That was
Where's page 20? The numbers stopped. It's probably under new business, I bet. Yellow
It's under
tab.
New business.
Yeah, if you go to the yellow tab, new business.
I have it.
I saw it online, but I don't think I have it in here.
I have my, oh.
Oh, here, it's on 28.
28,
Like
okay.
the order is a little bit different.
Got it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Last year, the Oregon legislature provided funding to the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board for a brand-new grant program to help public water systems to purchase land to protect their drinking water source areas. The grant program includes the opportunity for cities to request funds to pay back loans they have already taken out to purchase land for source water protection, which perfectly fits Port Orford's recent purchase of the Wilson parcel. We're currently working on an application to apply for this grant due on December 12th. In order to be eligible, the governing body must pass a resolution pledging to manage the land for drinking water and to perpetuity. I always have a problem with that word. And to include
Resolution 2414 pledging to manage the Wilson parcel and Port Orford's drinking water source area for drinking water protection.
Second.
any discussion on that?
Not for me. Makes sense.
And you have some watershed proximity. Do you support this resolution?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Anybody else?
I like the smile too, though.
I had to work for it tonight. Vote on that. Councilor Burns,
Yes.
Councilor Rask,
Yes.
Councilor Tidy, I believe, is gone. Councilor Velisis,
Yes.
Councilor Pugwitz,
Tim, yes.
Councilor Webb.
And you guys, I just
Webb,
have,
yes.
I do have to tell you the proximity on this. I am such a glutton for punishment that to get this money for the city, I went and served on the rulemaking committee, the state rulemaking committee for this grant program, sat through like 6 meetings to make sure that we would qualify, and am now working on this grant to get us $400
Thank you.
plus $1,000.
Fabulous.
So
Thank you.
Amazing.
Wow.
Thank
Yes.
You are a
Above and
glutton.
beyond.
You are.
It's just
I
amazing.
think
If you're into that kind of stuff,
Actually
you should
did
consider
that.
running for mayor.
I'm not going to have
Yeah,
time to do
not
this
gonna-
stuff if I'm mayor, right? Oh my gosh.
Okay, next.
Oh, you want to keep moving along?
I would like that. yeah.
Okay, we'll go
It's
to
my
12B
bedtime.
then, resolution 2014 PICM for FEMA.
Pick 'em.
You are on.
Oh, yeah, we talked about this last month. This was our
What is it? The
preliminary implementation
Preliminary
control
implementation.
measure.
Didn't we decide we were gonna?
Yes.
We decided we had to pick a lane and then you asked us to.
What page
give
is that on?
information.
That is on page
26.
26 and
26,
27.
okay.
Okay, so you would like to hear a motion to,
I make a motion to adopt the resolution 2413, the FEMA pick-em.
I second that motion.
Now, do we have to choose one of these three?
Didn't we already choose?
We chose one already. But where is it? Oh, no,
Oh, I thought we already did it.
We did, I thought we did too.
I thought we,
No, but wait, this is
On 26, where there's 1, 2, and 3?
title page. So.
Go with the one
One by one.
by one,
No, the next one.
which was using
Number
their
3.
criteria, right?
And he'll just take off the new business.
Is that part of the motion?
So the resolution is to adopt a FEMA permit by permit pre-implementation compliance measure.
And that's what we
Oh.
agreed on last month.
That's resolution
Okay.
2413,
I
a
got you.
resolution by the city council to adopt a FEMA permit by permit pre-implementation.
We made the decision last month and then sent it to staff to bring it back as a resolution form. And we're here now. And I think we're ready to vote, Mr. Mayor, on this one. You got it first and a second.
Okay. Commissioner Webb.
Webb, yes.
Oh, sorry, Counselor, you're Counselor.
Oh, yes, I'm that
You were
too.
Commissioner yesterday.
Yes.
Counselor Rask,
Yes.
Counselor Burns,
Yes.
Counselor Pogwitz,
Tim, yes.
Counselor Velisis. Ooh, I picked Ann last like 3 times in a row. I gotta watch.
No, you picked me last like 700 times in a row.
Did you
Are we on
vote?
page 30?
Sorry, I didn't hear it. Now we're on to 12C. Schedule the December 4th work session with Ann Heath, our financial checkup.
I would like to amend it, however, please. So we've actually had to, based on training for the new members or anyone who wants a brush up, that needs to be December 5th at 5:30 rather than December 4th, please.
Please consider going to those classes. They're good. And they're even just good for rubbing elbows and networking a little bit. You do find out a lot about at lunch.
Where's this one at?
At the Mill Casino.
Oh, there you go. And you can win some money while you're at it.
It pays to
Or we're
go,
gonna-
right?
We reached out to invite our new city council member
Yes.
elect to come, and Melissa's going to come. I'm going to come. They have a mini mayor training for at the lunch hour that I'm going to go to.
Oh, so
So there's oftentimes there is
True,
best
but unhelpful
practices,
statements.
discounts on your insurance if we all go.
That's special districts and we're not a special district.
Yeah, but I remember.
But it's SDIS. Do we do SDIS?
There still is a best practices discount for these trainings. I know there.
Probably.
That's so
It
interesting.
seems like I remember that we can get up to 10% off of our.
Yeah, because CIS might do it. You're
That's
right.
what I've
Or
said.
Just
So
whoever our
it-
insurance carrier.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, except when we do it, like I've noticed when I've gone to some of these meetings that Reedsport brings like their
Everybody.
whole,
they do.
everybody goes to the table, every city council member, the mayor and the administrator, they all go. And I'm thinking, wow, they're all look to be retired.
It should be a requirement.
You should know what you're doing, but we're not hired, we're elected, so.
So December 5th, come on.
Well, so last year or the last time
December
Gary and Perry and I went last time, I mean 2 years ago, and I assume you guys that have been on for a long time went a long time ago.
Things change.
But yeah,
They do. I'll go to it. It's December what?
Fourth, that's on the 4th. That's
the
December
4th?
4th, which is why we had,
That.
from 9 a.m. from
No,
8
Wait a
a.m.
second, we just said the 5th, didn't we?
that's the Ann Heath Finance meeting.
Oh, okay. And then can you look into discounts that, I'm sorry, I know you got a pretty tall list of things to do there, but if it comes down to just one of us needing to go to it that doesn't plan on it, maybe we could coerce that person into
I'm going because
joining us.
I'm not going to be class. No.
And also in the past, I've been told by special districts that even signing up to go to it qualifies you. So if you got hit by a bus,
Let's not put that out in the universe, all right? Interweb, let's just.
but I'm saying that
No, and if you're on your water guy classes, if you just pay people to sign for you. Just kidding.
This is what
Okay.
happens when the meeting goes too
yeah,
long.
So are we okay
so
on
this
the?
is on page, so on page 30, yeah, are we good?
December.
Yeah, we're
Sure, I don't.
we're good on that. You got your update on the financial checkup. Everybody's good with that 5:30 on the 5th? 4th? 5th. Okay, 12D, discussion, regular December meeting date. Well, the regular date would be the third Thursday of the month.
Just the 19th? Hmm. Yeah, so that would be December 19th would be our scheduled meeting.
What do you guys think? Excited?
On the what?
19th, it's incorrect on the packet. The 19th. December 19th.
Could potentially be a hard one for me, but I
Yeah.
know that there's,
Any of
I'll
them?
call in if I can. You know.
So what do we know what we have? The only thing we know we have on the agenda is, if we get the evaluations for Melissa
Right.
back, would be to try to do that before the end of the year. We could do that. Are you asking if we should change this meeting to earlier in the month or something, or?
No, I think the question had been because sometimes you folks decide not to have a meeting in
Yeah,
December.
sure.
We have
Sometimes
canceled.
you do. I think that's the question is, do you want to have this meeting on the 19th for those things?
I kind of feel like we need more meetings, so taking a meeting away is not my first choice. But
I've felt that way in the past, Gary, too.
Me too.
But I've always tried to not chime in because I might be crab fishing and I won't, I don't want to obligate you guys to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like,
Well, and are you going to be here? Okay.
My thought has always been to give the staff a little bit of a break around that time, knowing
No,
that
that
there's
is
parties
true.
and that kind of stuff. That's my only thought has been. But
Okay.
That's
And the main thing about the evaluations, you guys, like the reason I was pushing for that is so that this sitting council was doing the evaluations.
that's
Like, I just want the
Worthless if you don't,
evaluations
yeah.
done
I think
before I'm out of here. It doesn't mean that we need to talk about it at the next meeting. I just want to get them conglomerated and scored and in Ann's hands or in my hands. But I think getting the evaluations by the people that are here is super important. And that is one thing when we were talking about the process, we did do it we changed the evaluations to December, so it would always be at the last, part of an election, but before the transfer.
Yeah, it was silly to do it the other way. I mean,
Yeah.
And that can change. There's a new sheriff in town real soon, so you guys can do whatever you want with the evaluation next year. But where he landed on doing it before the transfer, I think we have a really good form. I'll get those out to you after Ann and Melissa remind me a couple times early next week. And then
can we make this work session a special meeting?
Oh, could we make it an executive session? You're actually kind of right.
Oh, right around that. Yeah, we can make that happen.
No, we wouldn't have to. Just an idea.
It actually fits. And actually, what if we did make that our meeting for the month?
And then that way-
Like had a special meeting, not trying to say we'll load up the agenda by the 5th, knowing that we have the evaluations at least, and we have this financial thing, which makes it a great meeting right there. The financial update and the
I am so
evaluation.
excited for that financial update because I mean, I know
Yeah.
some of you have met this woman. I got to meet her briefly. I think she's going to be so great for us. I mean, not that
Amazing.
it's going to be super helpful for us. So I would think like not loading up the meeting, but even just having that meeting would be good. The only other thing is that I think Greg was going to come back to that meeting and have that be his last meeting on the 19th. I don't know if that's true and he's not here. I thought he like totally worked out his schedule so he would be coming back here to like fulfill his final council
He
meeting.
did say something about that. We should ask him.
You want me to send him a message right
Yeah.
now? Okay.
Good night, sir.
Thanks, Dave.
Good night, Dave.
But you're going to miss your opportunity for public comment, sir. Okay, I think I just got one.
So there's that thing, and then yeah. So that's like the outgoing. That would be like the last. If we don't do one, well, that would be we could make that the 5th our last meeting if we wanted to. But if Greg is coming back for that, then
I would feel pretty bad if he scheduled it.
The thing about it is, you guys got to realize, well, I guess I probably could chime in online. I'm just starting to think if we're not going to have a quorum.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Right.
What about Perry? Are you going to be here on the 19th or not? Do you know yet?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
So it looks more like we're having a quorum. So.
Well, I can be here. Gary would be here. Brett may or may not be here depending on crab season.
Greg says that he's down for whatever, but I don't even get it.
But
He wants the last meeting, he says. So I doubt that December 5th is going to work for him. I'll ask him. real
when's
quick.
he coming back? I mean, he chimed into this one.
He told me, and I can't remember.
I want to say it's 2 days before.
Oh, you're right. It is right
mean,
before the December
I
meeting.
think it's kind of, I mean, one of the things that I would like us to do at the last meeting is to really appreciate our outgoing counselor and mayor who
I'm
have,
not gonna be here then.
what?
Yes, you are.
What?
Okay, Greg's back Friday.
I was being the smart aleck. Said I'm not gonna be here.
Greg's
then.
back Friday and he says he can do the 5th. So he's
Oh,
back
okay.
on the 29th. Okay, thanks, Greg.
Oh, this.
I cannot promise the 5th.
Okay.
Okay, so
But that's not its total no.
And
we
when are-
know we're
when
not
are
going to
you
make
leaving?
everybody happy.
Mhm.
When are you
And
leaving, Tim?
I will have to call in, and I'm okay with that. But my thoughts still go with staff.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Well, if we did it on the 5th, will you be here on the 5th? Or
I
no?
will call in on the 5th.
Okay.
And I like that because staff already has to get a meeting ready for the 5th
Yeah.
already.
Yeah.
And if we're just adding the evaluations, it's 2 lines for Joseph in an executive session.
Yeah.
Joseph, do you have something to say?
Since
Oh yeah, he might have planning things.
So
Oh.
since staff time seems to be a concern among the counselors, I am flying out of town the day after, so the 20th. The 19th is still doable for me, but
But the 5th would be better.
the 5th would be better because I don't exactly want to be here until midnight and then have to drive.
Would probably
And
be a
then
short
fly.
meeting, but
It's like you're
We've only had one of them.
making it seem like we have long meetings or
I
something.
know, I don't know what? I haven't known you
Okay, so what do you folks want to do?
I think that it sounds like there's, except for Perry, there's critical mass around the 5th. So we didn't hear your answer, Perry. Did you say, is there a possibility to do the 5th, or is it a hard no?
Well, it's possible I can probably do it by online.
I'll be online with you.
Oh, goody.
Macho's doing good, Perry.
I could not guarantee the 19th.
Oh, I'm so glad. Thanks.
But I could guarantee the 5th.
You can?
I can guarantee the 5th, but not the 19th.
Starting to look a lot like the 5th.
Christmas, I mean,
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, no, that sounds like that's where we're coming together with.
perfect. And then that's just one meeting for us, and it's mostly and to get us financially aware, which is what I'm excited about.
Well, I
Make
just-
sure, obviously, Deanna, I'm sure knows, she's very aware of the meeting schedule.
Deanna.
Make sure she knows about that financial meeting. But it's posted, I'm sure she is, she's on it, I'm just saying.
So we're going to post it as a
Special meeting.
Okay.
Special meeting and have an executive session part of it to discuss
Mhm.
the eval, which is the.
Yeah.
So that means you
Oh,
got,
and you were right on your RRS, I was wrong. We did so much 2B for a while that it got stuck in my head, but that, 2B is not the personnel executive session you want to go into.
that means you got to get
I can
get the thing out to us a little bit sooner.
The evaluation.
Evaluation.
I'm to you by the 3rd, don't worry.
Do you have to send it out?
No, go ahead.
If,
I can
Yeah,
send it-
anybody can send them out,
I
just
can
send them
it
back to
Mel- I
me.
sent it to you, Melissa, already.
I'm gonna send out my own evaluation.
Oh,
Don't fill it out.
I'm
I
gonna,
can-
No,
I'm
but
gonna
actually,
pre-fill, I'm gonna pre-fill it.
I
Yeah,
would
I
like to
sent it
see
you.
your
Well, you
evaluation.
can
I know you
forward
did.
it.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
I
if
will.
I
That's
can have it
a
sooner
very
than
valuable
later, it
piece.
would be great. I'd be grateful.
Oh, you are doing a self-evaluation.
Am I doing
Yeah.
something?
Right away.
No, you should. You
Because
should.
I will fill it out and get it back to you.
It's very helpful.
Because if I have
Because
to
it-
somehow
it-
send
No,
it
it is
to you,
important, it is
Yeah,
important, I
okay,
agree.
it's questionable if you get it.
It really,
That's what I enjoy having.
don't be like me and bring down your average though.
I am, I'm
You
gonna
can just
like
send it to me at your
basement that
convenience.
thing.
Thank you.
Not personable.
But the thing is, Pat, can everybody print them out easily? Because the other thing would be to just.
Can you print them right this minute and have Joseph go grab them out of the printer?
Well,
I can print,
But if I send you an electronic form, you can fill it out and then send it back to me electronically and I can print it out. Oh, it's
It's not
not.
a fillable PDF thing.
I can print mine.
You can do it, Joseph?
I can either go print them real quick or I can turn them into fillable forms tomorrow.
He can't do that. He is
It's not
good at
a
that.
fillable form, but it's a circle thing. It's not a. I'll send it.
Okay, I'll just come in and get,
Sounds like
Paper.
she's gonna do it.
okay, what?
Send them.
Oh.
If you don't mind.
Oh, and yeah, and then if you can't print it out, get a hold of me and I will help you.
Or
Any-
us.
Any of us. Yeah, use the city paper.
What else is on this agenda?
We got more.
You got more.
We got more. Keep on, don't get stuck.
Wait,
It's going back to the water leak policy.
but that's a continuing action item. We don't have to talk about that, do we?
No, we do not.
Put it off until December.
You're trying to stack the agenda for the 5th, huh?
Although this
I'm
one
trying to
doesn't
stack it
seem
for
like it's a
January.
huge-
Yeah.
What are you talking about? We're good on the
I
5th.
was gonna say that, but we
Yeah.
just discussed having a meeting on the 5th.
What is it? It's just a second
Pam's
reading of the
busy,
ordinance?
so she didn't even know.
Does
what
it have to
we
be
were
line by line one?
I just, in the water leak policy, I don't think there's much concern.
It's almost like he's torturing.
Oh, wait, no, it's the water leak policy. There is concern about that. This is leak season, actually, so maybe we will consider putting that on the 5th.
I think he's too. Yeah.
I don't know that there's going to be a lot of.
Is there anybody that wants to make a motion on number 13?
I would make a motion to accept the,
13.
I would make a motion to accept resolution 24-12, our water leak policy.
I'll second that.
So this is the second reading or the third reading, or what is this?
This would be the second reading.
Second
It would
reading.
be- I think it would be the first reading because you gave me revisions and directed me to make them at the last meeting.
Okay,
But
but
you
it
can do
says
that.
second reading.
It says second reading.
Yeah, no, it's a second reading. You
And I
can-
think we're okay.
you
That's
can
why
do
you
your
do a
first
first
reading.
reading
That's
is
right.
for those adjustments and then.
It's late.
It's all right, no.
Why, what do you mean it's late? It's only 9:15, like the dishes just finally all came in. Now work is starting. I'm feeling alive right now.
I knew something was going on.
Something's afoot.
So, we got a motion, a second. Any more discussion on that after last month's adjustments?
This is just what we recommended that you do last month, right?
Yeah. I hope so.
That's what we're checking right now.
We're
Justin.
putting some doubt in our minds there. You have to be, it is what we discussed last time, and you went back to the drawing board and made it happen. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do.
And I have a motion on the table to approve your work.
And there's a second too, right?
Yep.
Any other discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. Counselor Webb.
Webb, no.
Counselor Rask.
Yes.
Counselor Velisis.
Yes.
Counselor Burns.
Yes.
Counselor Pogwitz.
Tim, yes.
Okay. Now we're moving on to 14. Citizen considerations. Do we have any citizen considerations from the citizens online?
Is that Perry laughing?
Yeah, that was very given.
She's getting goofy too. Everybody's a little bit tired
You
here.
can get goofy.
Okay, hearing no. Do I have any counselor considerations?
Next meeting scheduled, oh, wait, I jumped ahead.
Yeah, you gotta give me some considerations.
I would like to say, because I'll get lost on the interweb at the 5th meeting, it's been a pleasure working with everybody here. I look forward to working with everybody here in the new year. And I appreciate you, Pat, and thank you. And
You too, Tim. You really helped me out through a lot of this hard, nasty stuff. I appreciate it.
You went through an awful lot.
Yeah, I've never seen any mayor or any executive or anybody's tasked with so much bullshit.
Yeah.
And
I feel bad. I didn't know my black cloud would like get multinational if I
no,
spread out
it's
a little bit.
you know, were you perfect? No, but you worked your ass off, and it's really been inspiring.
It's actually really cool right now where we're at compared to like some of the days of where we have been. It's really good to be sitting here and feeling good
I
about
can
the
tell
people
you-
coming in and the way like to be leaving. Like I'm not 100% like really happy about 7 away from this, but I am 100,000% happy with who I'm leaving behind. So I'm stoked. I'll never have to come to a meeting again.
you and
I did that for 4 years.
I've heard that before, yeah. He inherited the tough, I mean, COVID was tough. There's no doubt about it.
God, I miss
But
COVID.
he inherited
So much
the
more.
remnants of COVID plus a complete staff turnover. Think about it.
Yep.
Dina was here. Wade was here. You basically inherited,
Hank was here.
and Hank was here.
But
Maybe one of the officers.
even beyond that was the mess that remained.
Well,
The mess that remained.
yeah.
And,
It's fine.
and
Everything was
to-
fine.
We've been able to navigate that without lawsuits and, you know, there was frustration from some that things were going too slowly, and to be able to put those fires out and stay on task and not get sued is just huge these
Yep.
days. And yeah, I'm impressed with your work.
I think we did.
Thanks. That's good. I didn't think of that. We didn't get sued.
We did it. We did all that stuff and we didn't get sued, basically. Rightfully so. We shouldn't, but anybody can sue anybody
Yeah.
anytime for anything. We've dealt with some stuff. I'm here to tell you, this has been the toughest 4 years I've
Never seen anything
experienced.
like it.
without a
It's the
doubt.
best mayor term I've ever had.
Knowing what he's going through at the port
Ugh.
and being a personal friend,
Yeah.
knowing some things that it's like I said, it's been really inspiring, and I shot myself.
Well, and the
I
part I
fizzled
just would
out.
want to
My brain's
underscore
shot.
too, that how much hard
We gotta
work
get out of here. I'm gonna
and
adjourn.
dedication that you've shown. I mean, so much hard work, and it's not always the stuff that's like out front and all glory. It's just like working real hard and
Thank you guys.
Running
I
late
appreciate
and-
this. I hate this more than anything. I'm uncomfortable, but I'm like, I want to enjoy it, but I really appreciate this sentiment. I do. And there was some good stuff. We got a raw water tank coming. That's good.
There's a lot of good things. There's a lot of good things.
There's a lot of
It's-
good things.
Yeah, like the raw water tank.
Like we're not getting sued.
Yeah.
We've done a lot of good.
New
stuff.
community building.
It's been
The new
baby
community building,
steps,
that's
and
right.
It's going to continue to be baby steps. Government runs slow.
But just remember, if we're making half the people mad, we're doing our job.
49 of them.
Yep. Yeah, the 51. You got to get the 51 happy. You're right.
Remember, it's politics.
Yeah. Okay. Any other concerns?
I just have one, which
Mhm.
is that just thinking ahead to the next year, we do have, we're going to have to appoint a person to my position. And I don't know if we have a deadline that we've established for people to put in their letters of interest
For what?
for stepping into the position that I'm going to vacate.
What's that?
I'm
Council
vacating this
seat?
Position.
Oh, the president? Oh, we will.
No, just the council seat.
Counselor.
What?
She's moving to this chair, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
chair empty.
Yeah. Okay.
Vacancy.
Yeah, right.
For 2
I'm
years.
sorry. I misunderstood. Yep.
Finish finish out my term. It's a
So
2
you advertise.
What is your goal to place a person? Do you have a personal goal?
Well, I need to go back and speak with Joseph about what is the role specifically, because I think we've had a discussion. I think at first I was told that I could review them and make a recommendation to you guys. I think Joseph thinks it's a decision that all of us have to make.
The decision lies in the council to either support or reject your recommendation, but you get to make the recommendation.
Yes.
Well, so what I was going to suggest is that we take letters of interest, that I would get them and organize them, and then either I could make a recommendation to you and or I could bring you the letters and we could consider them at our, whenever our first meeting is, so that we get the new person on board as soon as possible.
There's also, you could delay that if you chose.
Uh-huh.
Tim,
Sooner
I
the
think when
better.
Tim was
I
mayor,
evidently
he
took
delayed.
6 months, according to somebody on the internet.
There was
but
something.
There must have been reasons why I took that
Yeah, I don't
long.
know why it was either, but.
Yeah. Can't remember.
What my goal.
Because nobody wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Because they were scraping the bottom of the barrel and they
Right.
ended up with
I
me is why it took 6 months.
I don't think I had very
That's
many
an
people
idiot.
interested in, and anyway, it doesn't matter how I did it. It's up to you.
Right.
I
Okay,
guess.
well, my goal, if you ask me, would be to look at who applies or expresses an interest, to see who has the skills that would be suitable, and if we have fabulous applicants, then to see who would bring the complementary skills to the set that we have.
And that's where
people.
you're given a lot of power in that you get to shape especially with that empty seat, you're picking number 4 of a majority vote. So it's an extremely important decision that you're going to make.
You're not helping this situation.
No, it is. It's really important. And the board can reject, or the council can reject it if it's too radical. It's just like Congress or taking a look at a judge or something.
I haven't seen I believe we have one letter of interest. I haven't seen it yet.
We have one letter of interest, I can confirm.
Okay. So that's something I'm thinking we should maybe request that they be submitted by.
I wouldn't limit myself. If it was my decision, I would do what you're doing, put my feelers out, but I wouldn't necessarily exclude Bob because he didn't do it,
Well, but we have to have a deadline so then we can know
But
when.
they don't, it's
No,
not a
who's interested
requirement.
in it,
But
but
what
who's
I'm saying is it's not a requirement for you to go out out to advertise.
Yeah,
I mean, it's, you get to choose somebody.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think we've put it out. We've
It should be
stated what the
advertised.
process is. We've put it out here.
look
We
at
will
our-
put it on Facebook or
We could, there's a
advertise
position.
in all the places that you would.
I remember when we switched commissioner at the port last year, Dunkel said it was very important that you don't do it the first meeting. Like you establish the vacancy and then
Oh.
do your advertising or
Right.
whatever. But really, you shouldn't think that first meeting you're going to fill that seat.
It's not,
And it's different because it's an election, but I know when we had a replacement, the SDAO, the ethics people, he was really adamant that no, you got to make sure that vacancy is established and that you put it out there before, like, yes, you can make the decision and it's all on you to bring it forth, but it's important that it's open and everybody has an opportunity to know about it at least.
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
nominees can come to the first meeting just to be
Well, that would be another thing. I mean, to figure out what is the process we want to do is we could ask people to come to the first meeting to express their interest and show up in person as opposed to just the letter of intent. So I will think about these
We have,
things.
well, we have guidelines here,
And-
in the shape of council rules. I'm going through it right now to see
Yeah, and
what.
that's what I was going to say. I need to go back and look at it. I hadn't really had a chance to look at it. I know Joseph did look at it at one point, conversation.
And also, we can change the council rules, that
Yes.
just with a majority vote. It's not,
I think I suggested 2 people during my 4 years and council approved, but I chose another person early on and there were people that didn't really care for it. And so we decided to pull that person.
I
It's a ton of
appointed
good
someone to planning, same way,
Yeah.
where people weren't super stoked about it. It's a hard one.
Okay, well then it sounds like what you guys are saying is that it does not, I had been thinking, let's push to get the first person on so that we can start like doing orientation with our council and that person could get up to speed. And like when we're having that first meeting and talking about, okay, what are we going to do with this council? And, like, I don't think we're going to get to our priorities right away. I think there's going to be a little bit of time to get people up to get the new people up to speed. But we'll want to do that soon, so anyway.
Sooner's better. I mean, obviously 6 months was probably too long, but I can't remember the circumstances. But
It was, nobody wanted it.
if you can't do the first meeting, I mean, maybe the second meeting could be a loose goal. I mean, but I don't think you want to completely lock yourself in like Brett said.
Okay.
Unless
You
he's
guys have to
changed
switch sides
his mind.
because these are the new people.
and you may get 5 applicants and just say, ugh, I'm gonna go back out. I don't like this. You want it, it's one of those important, it's a very important decision because you're shaping the next 2 years.
That might be a good thing to do a newspaper article on maybe.
I'm sure that's how we advertise. It
I
was-
thought, I was hoping that Pat might throw his hat in the ring.
Well, that's one reason I also thought we should have a deadline so we could know when people have to let us know by.
Stand by me.
We'll give you a deadline. You either meet it or you don't.
Deadline, we know.
Because I feel like we have the group it's a good group.
Yeah.
A good group with a lot of
Real good
knowledge.
group. I've been on a lot of, there's 20 years in stuff like this, and this is the best, most rounded, respectful of one another. It's just really good.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take much to upend that. It
Yeah.
takes one individual to upend the whole apple
Yeah.
cart. So,
Well, I really do like the culture that we have in this council of sharing and different perspectives and discussing. And even though discussion does take too long, but I really appreciate that about this council.
I think it's about respect, just mutual respect. And
Mm.
Kumbaya.
Got one more time.
Everybody.
Meeting is adjourned at 9:30.
I don't think he
I
says
just trying to
there.
get Ann used to it.
He's
I
like
don't
a
think she's-
cobra.